The Grand Prix coming next. Our commentary live from Australia.
Firestone, the science of safety.
Welcome to the start of the 1994 IndyCar season from the eastern coast of Australia in Surfers Paradise. This is Ben Edwards setting the scene for round one of the PPG IndyCar World Series. We'll see the cars cover some 65 laps of the 2.8-mile street circuit, now in its fourth year as the season opener. "12 months ago, Nigel Mansell broke all the records by becoming the first driver to win his first ever IndyCar race from pole position. Now, as the reigning PPG Cup champion, can Mansell return to the Australian circuit and take the same sort of result in his quest for the 1994 championship? Well, this is the scene right now at Surfers Paradise, and as you can see, it's not much of a paradise conditions at the moment. It's been beautiful weather over the last few days in qualifying, but all of a sudden, come race day, the rain has been falling and conditions really not looking at all good for the start of this first round of the IndyCar World Series. What a shame to get things underway with a delay already, and the Australians not happy with the weather at the moment. Well, the grid moving round on this first of their warm-up laps. We'll have to see whether they're actually going to be able to get going straight away or whether there will be a delay in the race start. Let me tell you about the grid though, with Nigel Mansell taking pole position once again at Surfers Paradise, keeping a 100% qualifying record here in Australia. He set a qualifying time in the second qualifying session of 1 minute 34.877. to set that pole position by some 7/10 of a second. There in second place, the car of Michael Andretti. Andretti making his return to the world of IndyCar racing, having competed in Formula One last year with McLaren in a disappointing season, and he is driving the brand new Reynard IndyCar. And a quick hello to everybody at the Reynard factory in Bicester in England who is watching this race live on Eurosport. They'll be rooting their man on, and Andretti on the outside of the front row of the grid hasn't quite achieved the stated aim of Reynard's to put it on pole for the first race, but he's certainly come very close, and the opportunity perhaps for taking the debut win for the Reynard IndyCar. Well, all the cars obviously coming into the pits now to have wets fitted. It has been declared a wet race now, so that will be the delay as all the teams will switch their cars onto wet tyres, and then they'll be recollecting on the grid once again. Some new faces, some new colours to watch out for in IndyCar racing this year. That was Mark Smith in the Craftsman Tools car. He's running with Walker Motorsports this year in a brand new Lola, as opposed to the year-old Penske that he was running in last season's events. Paul Tracy in the Penske, winner of 5 races last year to match Mansell's tally. And he's been joined in the Penske Dream Team by Alonso Jr. for this season. That's Gary Brabham making another return to IndyCar racing this season. He competed in last year's Surfers Paradise race and also competing in this race. He's qualified last in the 1993 Lola that he's running, but a lot of local support for Gary Brabham, the former British Formula 3000 champion, taking his second IndyCar start of his career. So a lot of pit activity going on. Let's have a quick look at a quick run down the grid for you while the cars are all having their wet tyres fitted. So Mansell and Andretti line up on the front row of the grid. Second row of the grid sees the third chassis combination with Emerson Fittipaldi on the inside of row 3 in the Penske with the Ilmor engine. So we have 3 different chassis in the first 3 places on the grid. Really bodes well for the rest of the season and the competitive nature of IndyCar racing. And alongside him, a surprise for many people, Adrian Fernandez has qualified in 4th position in the grid in the second of the Reynards to be competing. It has been a good qualifying for the Reynards. There are 6 Reynards in the top 11. A superb performance for this brand new car to IndyCar racing. Alonso Jr. and Paul Tracy share row 3. So it's an all Penske row on row 3, and Alonso Jr. just 4/100ths of a second faster than the Canadian Paul Tracy. 4th row of the grid sees Maurizio Gugelmin and Jacques Villeneuve. So a completely Reynard 4th row of the grid, and some new names to the world of IndyCar racing. Maurizio Gugelmin coming from the world of Formula 1. He competed in 3 IndyCar races towards the end of last year with Dick Simon Racing. And lining up alongside him, the rookie with a lot of interest in him at Surfers Paradise this weekend, and that's Jacques Villeneuve, the young 22-year-old son of Gilles Villeneuve, the former Formula 1 superstar who died in 1982. And Jacques Villeneuve has been competing in the States for a couple of years now, came through the ranks of Formula 3 in Europe and then in Japan, and then last year raced in the Formula Atlantic series in the United States, finishing 3rd in that series with 5 victories. And sponsored by players, he's moved into IndyCar racing for 1994 and also driving the brand new Reynard IndyCar. So superb qualifying performance from Jacques Villeneuve to line up in 8th place on the grid. The 5th row of the grid will see the next Lola after Mansell, so quite a change around there for the 1994 Lola. It's on pole position in the hands of Nigel Mansell, but the next Lola is down in 9th place, and that is Robbie Gordon. But Gordon was fast during the other qualifying sessions over the course of the weekend. He was 2nd fastest, in fact, on the first untimed session on Friday morning, and he had gearbox problems with his car in the final qualifying session. A change for team for him. He's running with Walker Motorsports this year in 1994, and he's sponsored by Valvoline. So the Valvoline colours now not in the hands of Alonso Jr., but in the hands of Robbie Gordon, lining up 9th on the grid. Alongside him will be another young American who's been going well, Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy in his first complete full season and in a brand new car for this year, also driving the new Reynard, powered by the Ford Cosworth engine. Vasser lines up in 10th position on the grid. On the 6th row of the grid, Teo Fabi in the last of the Reynards. Fabi shunted in qualifying yesterday, just in the dying moments of the final qualifying session, crashed it into the wall, did a fair bit of damage, and he is therefore out in the spare car. So the Hall Racing Pennzoil Special is the spare car for the race. He still went pretty well in this morning's warm-up, so they've obviously got that car running very effectively. Lining up alongside him will be the Swede Stefan Johansson, making a return to IndyCar racing with the Tony Bettenhausen team. Mark Smith and Mike Groff share row 7. Mark Smith in the new Lola, Mike Groff competing in the Lola with the new Honda engine. Honda making their attack on IndyCar racing for 1994, and it is a very serious attack with former 3 times IndyCar champion Bobby Rahal's team. Rahal qualifying a little further down the grid, and he's qualified in 16th place. It's starting off for Honda, but we can expect to see a lot more of them up near the front of the grid as we progress through the season. Certainly Rahal was very happy with the performance of the Honda engine in qualifying over the last few days, really just complaining that they hadn't had enough time with the Lola yet to get the chassis set up just right, and saying how critical it was to get the chassis set up absolutely perfect. They went a little bit the wrong way in qualifying, and that sees them further down the grid than they had hoped. Harry Lyndike lines up in 15th place on the grid in the Eurosport Lola 94, the Indy Regency racing team. And the 9th row of the grid is shared by Scott Goodyear and Scott Sharp. Scott Goodyear, one of the front runners from last year with Walker Motorsports, has changed allegiance for this year and is running with the Budweiser King Racing team. Scott Sharp, a new name, competed in the final race last year at Laguna Seca, and a man who's won various Trans Am championships coming into the world of IndyCar. Well, the weather certainly isn't looking too promising at the moment. A bit disappointing considering just how good the weather has been for the last few days. This really is a major change, and this could upset the form book in a major way. Paul Tracy was actually fastest this morning in the warm-up. His time a fair bit quicker than anybody else. In fact, was over a second faster than Nigel Mansell in this morning's warm-up. But apart from that, the times were very close indeed. Robbie Gordon coming up into 3rd fastest, Michael Andretti 4th, Alonso Jr. 5th, and Scott Goodyear, who we mentioned being rather far down the grid, he's in 6th place after the warm-up, 6th fastest in the warm-up this morning. Just continuing a quick look at the rest of the grid, you may be asking, where is Mario Andretti? Well, Mario Andretti lines up alongside Raul Boesel way back on row number 10 after problems for Andretti in qualifying, electrical problems on the first qualifying day, and in fact his car caught fire on the final qualifying session with a fuel leak, and he had to depend on his first qualifying run performance. So disappointing, Andretti not happy, and Andretti in his final year now. This is his retirement year from IndyCar racing. The Arrivederci Mario Andretti Tour has started here at Surfers Paradise. It's going to be a difficult season for him in many ways, seeing people for the last time as he goes around the circuits, but certainly Andretti one to watch for the race, and with a better performance in this morning's warm-up, he was 9th fastest. Raul Boesel then disappointing 20th on the grid, and that is a great shame. 21st on the grid, another new name, Alessandro Zampedri, coming from the world of Formula 3000 in Europe, has now taken up the IndyCar challenge himself, and he'll be looking for a good, promising rookie performance here. Been testing in the Euromotorsports Lola, it's the 93 car, and impressing his team owner Antonio Ferrari with his performance so far. Willie T. Ribbs lines up alongside him, and who's competing, well, again in a 93 Lola, last year's car, hasn't quite got the budget to run a brand new car with the Walker Motorsports team. Hiro Matsushita and Robbie Buell will be sharing row 12. And Davy Jones in the AJ Foyt Copenhagen car is 25th on the grid. So Davy Jones taking over the drive of Robbie Gordon. Man, we're looking at now in his new colours, the Valvoline Cummins colours of Robbie Gordon. Have to get used to the new colours, the new cars of some of the front runners in the IndyCar series. Just to round off the grid, Dominic Dobson and Gary Brabham, the final two qualifiers from yesterday's qualifying sessions. The Surfers Paradise circuit is a fast street circuit, some very long straights, a very quick chicane, and some pretty slow corners as well. They run a fairly low downforce setup here at Surfers, so not running as much wing, as much downforce as they would run on some of the other tracks. And for this year, the wing sizes have been reduced as well, so that has made a difference. They've gained in straight line speed, gaining something between 10 and 15 miles an hour in a straight line, thanks to the smaller wing sizes and other gains aerodynamically from the cars. And a lot of work has gone over the winter in improving the car, especially with the challenge from Reynard's. The brand new Lola, the 94 car, is a complete change from last year's car, which was perceived to have had a little bit of a disadvantage compared to the Penske, particularly in terms of grip in the medium speed corners. And the design team at Lola, John Travis and Keith Knott, have come up with their own answers now, and they'll be looking towards this race to see if they've come up with the right answers. Well, certainly Mansell's performance must have pleased them greatly at Lola's with that scintillating pole position lap. He really gave it absolutely everything in second qualifying, and at that time 1 minute 34.877, just to compare that with his last year's qualifying time, which was 1 minute 38.555. So very nearly 4 seconds faster around the track this year in the 94 Lola than he was last year in his debut IndyCar race. An amazing performance considering the track is basically unchanged. They have moved the barriers back in a couple of the corners to give the drivers greater visibility through some of the sharper bends, but really the track in any other way has not changed that much. So Mansell's qualifying time, an absolutely superb effort, and he has been fastest in all of the qualifying sessions so far this weekend, just being pipped today in this morning's warm-up. Well, Michael Andretti making his return to IndyCar racing had a big moment across the curbs in final qualifying yesterday, and took off in the Reynard, supposedly about a metre high, but the car certainly survived it well, and he thanked the Reynard team for producing such a strong car. There's Mansell's record from last year, 5 wins last year, 7 pole positions, and various records being broken in his first IndyCar season. Jacques Villeneuve there in the number 12 car, the Players sponsored driver. A lot of attention being focused on this young Canadian to see just how well he can perform in his very first IndyCar race. The name Jacques Villeneuve, not unfamiliar to the world of IndyCar racing. His uncle, Gilles Villeneuve's brother, also raced in IndyCars a few years ago with some success. But this is the new generation of the Villeneuve family racing here at Surfers Paradise this weekend. A man who was formerly a very talented skier before he decided to pursue a career in motor racing. And coming into IndyCar racing with the Forsyth Green team. A lot of experience in that team. Jerry Forsyth, team owner of the Skull Bandit March, which Teo Fabi did so well in 1983. Barry Green, highly experienced team manager, having worked with Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Alan Jr., both of them making a return to the world of IndyCar racing this year. The latest news we have is there's a delay of some 5 minutes, but we're looking to get a race start in around about 5 minutes time, once all the changes have been made for the conditions. Well, we had rain here at Surfers Paradise a couple of years ago, back in 1992. The race started in the dry, but it rained during the race itself, causing a full course yellow and tyres to be changed. And on that occasion, first part of the race was a battle between Michael Andretti and Alan Jr., as it had been in fact in 1991, the very first year of the race here at Surfers Paradise. Andretti and Alan Jr. battling away until the rain fell, but the man who really benefited from that rain was Emerson Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi was the man who came through to win in the 1992 race. He certainly seemed to excel in the wet conditions here in Surfers Paradise, so perhaps he's one man who won't be too worried about the overcast skies and the rain around at the moment. A few new drivers joined Jacques Villeneuve on the grid today. Alongside him there in the background we can see the number 88 car of Maurizio Gugelmin, the other Reynard. We've got Scott Sharp, Davy Jones making a full-time return to IndyCar racing. As we mentioned, Alessandro Zampedri from European Formula 3000, and Michael Andretti making a return after his world of Formula 1 racing in 1993. The 1994 Australian FAI IndyCar Grand Prix, a little bit delayed at the moment due to rain. The cars all changed onto wet tyres now and lining up on the grid. We should be getting the start of this first round of the IndyCar World Series underway in just a few minutes' time. Weather certainly not as good as it has been over the last couple of days here in Queensland. Surfers Paradise, usually wonderful weather at this time of year, and it has been for the last few days, but today the weather gods have decided against the race, and so some new conditions for the teams to deal with. Everybody running new cars, or most of the top teams certainly running brand new cars for this year, and most of these cars will have had very little, if any, running in wet conditions. So a bit of a guess work going on in terms of setting the cars up and what they need to do to the cars. They'll be piling on a bit more wing and trying to guess at what settings they require on a fairly new kind of surface for them to deal with. Nigel Mansell on pole position for the race. We'll be hoping he can get out and get clear. Visibility could be a problem, although it doesn't look as though there's too much standing water around at the moment. Certainly the conditions not too bad. So visibility shouldn't be too much of a major part of the race, but certainly Mansell will be keen to try and get away at the start of the race and stamp his authority on this first round of the championship. Last year, in the first race of his IndyCar career, he made a rather faltering start. It was his first ever rolling start in the world of single-seater racing. The last ever rolling start he'd done before that was way back in his karting days, and he got a little bit left behind as the pace car left the circuit. Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy both managing to jump in before they got to the first corner. Mansell actually taking it fairly carefully in the first few laps, with Robbie Gordon also diving past him to take up third place. But it didn't take long for Mansell to start working his way back through the order and retaking the lead from Emerson Fittipaldi in an exciting wheel-locking moment to take the lead position after around about 15-16 laps. Certainly didn't have it all his own way after that. He had to come into the pits for an extra stop after flat spotting his tyres. He picked up a puncture after a brush with one of the uncompromising walls here at Surfers Paradise. So he really had to battle through, but he did manage to take his debut win here last year. And well, if he can repeat that same sort of performance again, it's going to get all the other teams worrying about just how they're going to be able to live with Mansell throughout the rest of the year. He has the advantage now of knowing all of the circuits, of being familiar with the venues, of being comfortable with where he's going, the people that will be around when he goes to each and every track. And he's learnt as well from some of the mistakes perhaps from last year, such as Phoenix, the first oval race that he attempted to qualify for last year, where he crashed into the outside wall very heavily, had to miss the race. But he certainly seemed to learn from that, because Mansell went on to win 4 oval races throughout the rest of the year, and surprisingly really became the man to beat on the oval circuits in America. Most people had expected him to be the pace on the street circuits and on the road circuits, but as it turned out, Mansell's talents and the Lola 93 car certainly seemed to come together best on the oval tracks in 1993. This year the opposition will be just as intense, if not more so. The Penske team, now a 3-car team, Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy and Alonso Jr. will all be working at their utmost to try and beat Mansell. And Alonso Jr.'s introduction to the team, certainly one of the most interesting points at the start of this season. Alonso Jr. won the IndyCar Championship back in 1990. He's had a 6-year relationship with the Galles team, but that has now come to an end. It included running Rick Galles' own chassis, the Galma, in 1992 when he won the Indy 500. But he has now joined Penske Racing, the most successful team in the history of IndyCar racing. Unparalleled victories, 79 wins for Roger Penske in his career, 104 pole positions for the team. They've had 9 wins at the Indy 500, and it really is, in many ways, the team to beat. Penske ran Formula 1 in the mid-70s for a while, running Eurosport's Formula 1 commentator, John Watson, who took the only win for Roger Penske in Formula 1 in Austria in 1976. Since then, Penske really has concentrated on IndyCar racing, and they have a superb record. Alonso Jr.'s father winning the championship with Penske, and in fact Alonso Sr. winning his 3rd championship in 1985 for Penske, just pipping his son Jr. by 1 point on that occasion. And there is Alonso Jr., by the way, in new crash helmet colours. You'll see the Marlboro coloured crash helmet for Alonso Jr. now, so got to get used to new helmet colours for little Al, but very much a man to watch, and many people's favourite for the title this year. Now that he's got himself into the Penske team, many people feel that this could be Alonso Jr.'s year. It will be very interesting to see whether he can take a 2nd championship and try and then perhaps move on to matching his father's achievements of 3 IndyCar championships. Last year, little Al just scoring the 1 win. That was in Vancouver with the Galles team. He'll be hoping for better things this year. Teammate from last year, by the way, Danny Sullivan, no longer a part of IndyCar racing. Danny Sullivan won in Detroit last year, but the Molson sponsorship having been withdrawn from the Galles team, Danny Sullivan no longer a part of IndyCar racing. He is now trying to make his way in the world of NASCAR, but he's failed to qualify in the 2 races that he's tried to do so far, so things not coming together quite so well for him as he would have hoped. Also not in today's race, names from regular competition last year. Scott Brayton not competing at Surfers Paradise. He may well be seen at the Indy 500, but no regular drive for him. Eddie Cheever also out of the IndyCar World Series, again maybe seen at the Indy 500, but no regular ride. And Roberto Guerrero, also not competing here at Surfers Paradise, the Budweiser car of the Kenny Bernstein King Racing team, now being driven by Scott Goodyear, who's put in some great performances in testing over the winter. Well, some track work still going on. Try and make sure the track is in fit state for the start of this first round. 65 laps due to be run here. Race length of just under 2 hours. Lapping in around the 1 minute 40-second mark. Though, as I say, Mansell's qualifying lap at 1 minute 36, really showing everybody the way to go. Quite a big use of the curves through the chicanes, however, to set laps like that, and I don't think we'll be able to see them setting times quite as fast as that throughout the course of the race. And I think that will be an interesting point to watch, that although Mansell was that much quicker in qualifying, we all know Mansell's commitment and his ability to put together a real banzai lap in qualifying. He may well have had to use the curves and really hang it all out to do a lap like that. Now he's got to try and put 65 laps together, and we may well see everybody being that much more evenly matched in terms of times once they get into a race situation on full tanks as well. 2 pit stops will be planned as usual for this length of race, around about the 200-mile mark. The cars carry 40 gallons of methanol, the fuel used in IndyCar racing, and they will make 2 stops throughout the course of the race to replenish their supply. So we're looking at them stopping at around laps 20 to 23 for their first stop, and laps 42 to 45 for their second stop. Of course, yellow flag periods can make quite a difference to when they come in and make their pit stops, and that is part of the race strategy, part of the game plan, to try and read yellow flag periods. Here on a street circuit, a little bit different. Usually they use a yellow flag at the site of an incident. If somebody goes off, then they'll tend to wave the yellow flag on site, just as we would see in Europe in Grand Prix racing, and drivers have to be careful as they go past that particular spot, but then they can get back up to racing speed elsewhere on the circuit. A major incident, though, will bring out a full course yellow, in which case the pace car will come out, the cars will have to follow the pace car round, and of course that means the grid, or the whole field, will concertina together again, and any advantage that a leader may have drawn out can be negated in a yellow flag period. But last year we went all the way through the race without a full course yellow. We had several incidents, people going off, but they were all limited to just yellow flags on the corners involved. And so the yellow flag, not such a common sight on a full course yellow on the street course races. Bobby Rahal there in the Miller Genuine Draft car, the Honda-powered Indy car, first race for Honda. Some promising performances in testing, and Honda making their force felt already in IndyCar racing. It's a project that is certainly a factory effort from Japan, but with a big American involvement. Honda Performance and Development based in America, and part of the Honda aim is not only to go out and win races, but it's also to try and help develop American engineering talents in terms of producing the best engine, and they want to produce an engine that can be sold alongside Ford Cosworth's XB and the Ilmor Indy V8 engine as well.
Live.
From Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia, we welcome you to the first IndyCar race of 1994, the Australian FAI Grand Prix. And as in previous years, we have had weather problems here. 2 years ago, it rained hard when Emerson Fittipaldi won. Last year, it also rained here, and we have had heavy showers the past hour and 15 or 20 minutes or so. The temperature is 84 degrees. Winds are from the northeast at 20 miles an hour. The skies remain overcast, and the humidity is at 85%. And the weather forecast is for continuing showers throughout the afternoon. It has rained hard on a couple of occasions here within the past hour, causing the race to be called a wet race. While they were waiting on the tires to be changed and for the weather to clear up just a bit, the track dried and it was declared a dry race. Then just as that statement was made, it started to rain again. And that's where we are right now at the end of this rain delay. But we are hopefully within just a few moments of getting this event underway, as the engines have been fired up and 27 cars are on the grid ready to go in this Australian Grand Prix.
Once again, it's going to be declared a wet race. They're going to start on wet weather tires. The track is going to be different to what was earlier in the warm-up.
Nigel Mansell is the pole sitter for this race in the Kmart Coltex Haviland Ford Cosworth, qualifying at 106.053. Alongside will be Michael Andretti, returning to the IndyCar Series after nearly a year in Formula One. Emerson Fittipaldi, the victor here 2 years ago. In the Marlboro Team Penske PC94 Ilmor V8D will start in third position. Alongside him will be Adrian Fernandez from Mexico City in the Ducati Quaker State Ilmor V8D. Third row will have Al Unser Jr. in car number 31. He is also a member of Team Penske, as is the sixth starter, Paul Tracy from West Hill, Ontario, Canada, in another Marlboro Team Penske car. Going to row number 4, it's Mauricio Gugelmin, who has turned in an excellent qualifying performance. He's a Brazilian, will carry number 88 on the car. And Jacques Villeneuve, another Canadian, will be driving car number 12 and start in row number 4.
Starting in row number 5 on the inside, Robbie Gordon switched team to the Walker Motorsports team this year. And alongside him, the young upcoming good rider, number 18, Jimmy Vasser. On row 6 on the inside, number 11 is Theo Fabi, Jim Paul Reynard, and on the outside of him, Stefan Johansson in an old Penske Ilmor V8. On the inside of row 7, car number 15, Mark Smith, and alongside him, Bobby Rahal's teammate, also running the Honda engine, that is Mike Groff, who had a problem in the warm-up. On row 8, starting on the inside, Arie Luyendyk in the Indy Regency Racing Olivier Griard entry. He'll be switching that seat around with Griard over the season. And starting alongside him on the outside, car number 4, three-time PPG champion, Bobby Rahal in the Honda.
And in the 9th row, it'll be Scott Goodyear, who is joining the Kenny Bernstein team for the first time. Scott is from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Alongside him will be a former Trans Am champion in the United States, Scott Sharp, in the Pact West Racing Group Ford Cosworth. Mario Andretti will start inside of row number 10 in his final season of IndyCar competition. Alongside him will be Raul Boesel from Key Biscayne, Florida, driving car number 5, the Duracell Fujifilm Ford Cosworth. Alessandro Zempredri will drive car number 50, starting inside of row number 11. He's from Brescia, Italy. And Willie T. Ribbs from San Jose, California, starts outside row number 11. The 12th row has Hiro Matsushita from San Clemente, California, in the Panasonic Ford Cosworth, and Robbie Buell driving car number 19, the Myjack Ford Cosworth.
Starting on the inside of row 13, Davy Jones in his first full season of IndyCar racing. He's raced for A.J. Foyt before in the Indy 500 in car number 14. On the outside, number 17, Dominic Dobson out of California in the Pac West Racing Group Lola 94 with the Ford Cosworth power. And starting at the back on his own, on row 14, car number 76, Gary Brabham out of Gold Coast, Australia, right here in Gold Coast, in the split cycle PC93 Ilmor V8C entry of Tony Bettenhausen.
And 4 car and driver combinations did not qualify for the event. Marco Greco, Buddy Lazier, Andrea Montermini, and David Kudrave. Kudrave crashed and was unable to get the car repaired. The separation from the fastest to the slowest in the field, from Nigel Mansell back to 27th place starter Gary Brabham, is 6.29 seconds, 10.5 miles an hour. It's a 2.7 mile road course. Will go 65 laps, totaling 181.6 miles. The pole speed is 106.053. The race record is 97.284 miles an hour.
Almost 4 seconds quicker than the qualifying time set here last year. And the amazing thing so far is the fact that Nigel Mansell is almost a full second quicker than the second place qualifier Michael Andretti. this weather, I think, Bob, may play into the hands of Robbie Gordon, who is a real street fighter, loves getting the car sideways and loves the slidey, slippery conditions. We may see great racing from him coming up in the first opening laps while the track is still wet.
That's a very good point. You do have to look to people like Robbie Gordon who like to slip and slide around. He could be very competitive. And as we indicated earlier, he feels that he is one of the few that can run with Nigel Mansell, who has proven himself to be really head and shoulders above everybody else, at least as a result of the qualifying. Well, we urge you to sit back and relax and enjoy this event here this afternoon. We have been delayed by rain, and the track is very, very wet. It is a wet start. We're about a lap maybe from the green flag.
Robbie Gordon will be starting on the inside of row 5 in the 9th position. There he is there in the Valvoline entry. Right behind him you see the Conseco entry of Jimmy Vasser, who's also came on very strong last year in his first full season in the IndyCar Series. Or actually didn't even do the full season, but did, I believe, 12 of the 16 races and proved to be very good.
And you got a glimpse there of Michael Andretti, and you know there has to be a lot of things going through the mind of Michael Andretti after being so successful in this series, choosing last year to go to Formula One. It didn't work out for him. He is very glad to be back in this series and hopes he can be competitive and give Nigel Mansell a run for his money this year. But again, we remind you that Michael Andretti does have one of the new Reynard chassis. They have been very, very fast in the qualification activity this weekend, and so we expect Michael Andretti to be very competitive in this event.
He's also trying to settle a score or settle a point, and for all those folks in Europe who thought after his efforts in Formula One, they wrote him off, said, well, I told you he's no good, American races are no good. Well, just by the virtue of the fact that he's sitting on the front row already in his return in a new car is proving that Michael Andretti is very good. Unfortunately, in fact, this year was a good example. He's done more testing miles in the new Reynard in one weekend, I believe, than he did in the entire Formula One season last year. He has come on strong. And of course, one thing he really doesn't want to have happen is a mistake on the opening lap here at the Australian race, because then back in Europe, they will all go, yep, told you so. But we know better. We've been watching Michael Andretti for a number of years race over here in various forms of racing, and he is going to put on a great challenge this year for Nigel Mansell, and I think it's going to be a great battle that probably will go all the way down to Laguna Seca in October. Michael's a very aggressive driver, and I know he will want to take the lead when the green flag comes out. The question is, can he get the lead from Nigel Mansell before they enter the chicane? Because he would love to lead that first lap for himself, his own ego, his boost, his sponsors, and of course Reinhardt. And Adrian Reynard and Malcolm Oasley and all those guys will be very happy as we see Jimmy Swintal give the one finger warning, and the one lap warning means next time round we are going to go racing. Visibility is not going to be good because you can see the spray being lifted from these cars as they run at reduced speed. So you can imagine what it's going to be like when they come down at racing speed. It's going to be very difficult to see ahead of you. And if we do have a car get into trouble, we hope that everybody can avoid him. Let's just not have anybody get into trouble. Let's have this a very safe and a very quick race so that it won't rain again on us. Yeah, let's get this race in before it rains again. Of course, the first turn is very narrow, and it sort of barrels down onto that. There's a pretty good run up to it to give the chance for the guys to get down into single file. But it really is a bottleneck situation, as in most racing, where everybody's dashing for the first corner to lead the first lap. But with Nigel Mansell, Michael Andretti, and Emerson Fittipaldi, all three up front with their experience, obviously they realize you can't win the race on the first lap, and you've got to get past 65 laps, 2 pit stops, weather conditions, tire changes, fuel changes, engine changes, track condition changes to get that first win. Nigel Mansell even more anxious to get that first win because it means $85,000 if he can win from the pole today. Mansell was
on the pole last year for this race. At the end of the first lap, he had dropped back to 4th position, but we've already talked about how indeed that could be just the fact that he was unaccustomed to the flying starts, as the Indy cars have. He, of course, was used to the standing starts that they observe in Formula One racing. I'm sure that he has learned a lot over the past year and will make every effort to get to the chicane first this year here in Surfers Paradise. The field moves through one of the chicanes, and in less than a half a lap now, we'll be getting the green flag for 65 laps of competition on this 2.795-mile road course.
You can see there too where the track has already begun to dry out in that section after running these cars in just a couple of pace laps, although it is slightly cambered, so the water will drain too. But it certainly helps when you run the cars out there, because all that spray you see coming off the back there's obviously got to go somewhere, and generally it goes off to the side of the track and into the crowd or other areas and away from the track. So what I'm trying to say here is we could see pit stops fairly quickly for the change of tires, as they're going to have to go to the slicks to get this race to go at full speed.
Field coming down. Oh, and Gordon gets a little sideways there, gets on the accelerator and sees exactly how slick this track is.
Robbie Gordon, of course, who's come up through motocross and off-road racing, and that's where he really nailed this car handling stuff down to an amazing skill. And then he went from that into GTP and IMSA and Trans Am, and showed everybody how good he is on the streets in the big cars, and now he's doing the same thing in the Indy cars.
Well, the field now begins to line up 2 by 2 as Nigel Mansell sets his sights on the green flag, and finally a start of this race. Now we switch our in-car camera to Michael Andretti. Now we're with Nigel Mansell once again as he goes up through the gears and picks up a little bit of speed for the start of this race. And the green flag is out. Here we go. The race is finally on. No, we are yellow.
Yellow flag. The start was waved off. It looked like Nigel Mansell had too much of a lead on Michael Andretti as they came over the start-finish line, and they decided that it wasn't clean enough for a start. Now, we had some controversy last year with the start in Detroit, where Emerson Fittipaldi was eventually...
Oh, and a big pileup involving, what, 5 cars?
Ribs, Robbie Buell.
Raul Boisel is involved.
That's terrible news for him.
Zampedri is there in the 50 car.
And the last car, it's not Gary Brabham, is it? No, I think that's Scott Sharp.
5 cars pile up here when the race is under caution.
You know, it looks to me from that view that maybe Raul Boisel came out of the corner, got on the power because he thought the flag was being dropped.
Here it is again.
And let's see if we can tell you exactly what happened.
The cars were coming off the chicane onto the main straightaway, and some kind of looks like Zampedri maybe ran into the side of Boisel, spinning him around.
Davy Jones was able to come through, and Gary Brabham was able to come through. Now, they're all jammed up, and I don't think it's, apart from Boisel, who may have bad suspension damage to his left rear, or Zampedri to his right front, I think damage to the other cars is going to be fairly minimal, but they are stalled. This, of course, will mean we'll get more of a delay for the start of this race.
So we can rain again. The number 17 car there is Dominic Dobson at the left top of your screen, taking a look at it once again to determine exactly what happened here. There was contact between Zampedri and Boisel, spinning Boisel around, and then the cars just stacked up behind Zampedri as he was pinned against Boisel.
I think I don't think really you can really blame Zampedri for that, but he did come out a little wide, but at the same time Raul Boisel looked like he was cutting that turn kind of tight as he was following Mario Andretti through that, coming down to get the green flag, which they never got anyway. And there is Robbie Buell in the number 19, Dale Coyne entry, and I think he's going to be able to start again. I don't see any damage to his car, and they were really just slowly tapping onto the back of each other. We see probably some front wing damage there.
Yeah, there wasn't heavy contact in this incident. However, if a suspension piece is broken, of course, it's going to mean the end of the day for one of the cars. There's Zampedri driving the Euromotorsports Racing 93 Lola with an Elmore C engine in it. The rest of the field comes by. We are not under green. In fact, the cars never did get the green flag. They came down for a start, but the starter determined that Nigel Mansell had too much of a jump on Michael Andretti, and so they remained under caution, and behind them, the incident occurred.
And we were talking earlier, because these laps won't count because we never got the green flag, so these yellow caution laps won't count. We were mentioning the controversy of the starts, because at Detroit last year, it was ruled that Emerson Fittipaldi jumped the start a little bit. Nigel Mansell protested from the car. Jim McGee made it official. Within about 10 laps, they pulled Emerson Fittipaldi in and gave him a stop-and-go penalty, which literally cost him a race, although later on in the race he did end up, in fact, making contact with a wall. And then that race went into even more controversy as Sullivan and Allison Jr. got together, and poor old Wally Dallenbach at the end of the day was getting attacked from all angles by every car owner and driver. See all the guys making their way onto pit lane. And now, of course, they're going to sit there and make a decision, should we change to the slick tires again?
I'm not sure this race is ever going to get underway.
Oh, he's getting out of the car. Michael Andretti's out, so how long of a delay have we got now for this? Or maybe it's just a quick delay for him. Is he getting his seatbelts adjusted, possibly?
Well, you would think the cars would be ordered in to top off because, again, they are limited to a certain amount of fuel and they must have a full tank to start the race. There is Zampedri, whose car is trying to get restarted, and it does. So he'll be going back to the pit area. However, the car of Buell, as you can see, has not restarted and is at the back of a tow vehicle.
Zampedri, as far as we can see, had no damage to that car, no substantial damage, so he will be able to get the restart when they, or get the start when they do ever start this race. Willie T. Ribbs, you can see, it's having the front nose section come off. They put another one on because his right front fin did get broken. But they've got time to do that. Let's see, about 15 minutes from now, this race should have been over.
And instead, we haven't started yet. It's just been one problem after another. First rain, and now an incident before the green flag comes out on a wet racetrack that involved 5 different cars. And the other members of the starting field have been ordered to the pit area. And now they're going to have to make final adjustments, get the tanks topped off, possibly change tires, although I think it's probably going to remain a wet race because the track is still wet, although it isn't raining at the moment. But just another delay here before we get the green flag.
Now, I'm assuming at this point they will let them pull out of the pit lane in their starting order and do one lap and go green flag racing. Should they decide to run a couple of pace laps beforehand, then it's going to delay them again, and then there's a chance it may rain again. Now, Michael Andretti got out of his car. We saw him jump up and jump out, and also now Emerson Fittipaldi is out of his car.
That's Emo's car right there, and you can see it is
behind him
vacant.
too is Paul Tracy. So a lot of the drivers have in fact elected to get out of their car. So this could be another long delay. Like we said earlier, Murphy's Law, it's going to start raining again. Heavily.
Oh boy. Well, it's been an interesting start to the IndyCar season. Everybody was, including myself, was very anxious for this thing to get underway, knowing that the 94 season is going to be very competitive, but we haven't even seen a green lap yet. There's Paul Tracy's car. There is Bobby Rahal. You can see the powered by Honda logo at the back of the vehicle. And the computers come out.
Now that Honda signage you see on the car at the moment really it's fairly small, because considering they're coming in and trying to sell cars and they really want to get some mileage out of the TV coverage they get. But I think you'll find as the season goes on and as the results get better and better, that Honda sign is going to get bigger and bigger. And guess what, Bob? It's raining heavily again.
It is indeed raining again in Australia.
There's some people who are loving this, and that's one of the guys who's selling umbrellas for a couple of bucks on the corner, and the other one is the concession stands.
Yes.
They think this is wonderful.
That's right. But boy, those of us who are race fans and came here to watch a race, we are ready for a race and no more rain. Well, the cars are at least being pulled back out onto the grid from their pit areas.
The scary thing is they brought the pace car back out again, so they're going to do some pace laps.
Well, the question is, will they start the race since it's raining? They have not so far today. Every time it has started to rain, they have delayed it even further, and I can only assume that will happen again, that they will wait until it starts raining to get this thing underway. I've never known a road course or a street course race to be postponed by rain, but I'm not sure what this isn't going to be the first.
I wonder if they have it built on the promoter's option to run this race on Monday. They might just be doing that at this rate. There you see the car of Emerson Fittipaldi going back to the starting lineup, so they're going to lay them back out on the starting grid. Michael Andretti there looking kind of irritated as he walks from his car. But you see rolling the cars, they grid them up just like they were before, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. So
this has to be irritating because we talked earlier about how it must take a lot out of the driver to be out there one time on the pace laps, getting ready to go and scuffing in the tires, but now it's happened again and still no racing.
This time they even got to do a couple hundred yards of speed too, where they really were focused. And now, once again, they mentally detune and sit around and wait and see what happens. And they're going to have to get all psyched up again and focused and pay attention. It's not going to be easy to do. There you see the 17 car of Dominic Dobson, a Pac West entry that did not survive that incident. Some severe damage to the right front by the looks of things. And it doesn't look like Dominic Dobson is going to be able to start this first race of the year. Mind you, Dominic, the way the delays have been going, if you run that back to the paddock, get the team working quickly, you could probably still make the field.
Dobson, of course, is from the United States. However, he was born in Stuttgart, Germany. He resides in Seattle, Washington. This is his 9th year of IndyCar racing. He first entered the series back in 1985. He has no victories in 39 starts. He has, however, recorded 3 top 10 finishes, but apparently will not be among those that get the green flag. There is Dominic right there. He will not be among those getting the green flag for today's race. He's talking to some of the crew members and explaining what happened up there in the chicane as they came off of it to onto the main straightaway, and 5 cars got jammed up when Zampedri hit Raul Boesel.
Australia is an awfully long way to come to not even get a green flag. A very costly weekend for the Pac West team. As you see, once again, the car's getting gridded and the drivers are out of their cars. It's raining again, and we're going to be under a delay. Once again, try and get this race in. Now, at some point, they're going to run out of time. With daylight, it's now 3:30 in Australia.
Here comes the fuel tank.
Yep, top them off again.
Yep.
These guys going to run out of fuel.
Eurosport Live.
For a long time, and we can get this race in its entirety. A big roar goes up at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia. 27 cars fire to life, getting ready for the Australian FAI Grand Prix, the opener of the 1994 IndyCar season. Welcome to our coverage here on ESPN International. The spectators have been very patient, waiting out the delays that we have seen. But now they make their way to their seats and get set for competition. It's a warm 84 degrees. It's also very humid here, 85% humidity, and we have had intermittent showers. Some of those showers have been very, very hard, and skies remain overcast at this time, although it is not raining. And portions of the track are wet, or dry, I should say, although this race has been declared a wet race, at least at the beginning. The starting grid for today's event. The pole sitter is Nigel Mansell, driving car number 1, qualifying 4 miles an hour faster than the previous track record at over 106 miles an hour. Michael Andretti starts second. The second row, Emerson Fittipaldi and Adrian Fernandez. Going to row number 3, it is Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy, 2 members of the Roger Penske team. The fourth row has Mauricio Gugelmin in car number 88 and Jacques Villeneuve in number 12.
Starting on the inside of row number 5, Robbie Gordon, and alongside him, number 18, Jimmy Vasser. On the inside, row 6, starting 11th, it is car number 11, Teo Fabi, and alongside him, the Swede, number 16, Stefan Johansson. Working our way back to row number 7, number 15, Mark Smith. We'll start on the inside there in his special Lola Ford, and on the outside, Mike Groff in car number 10, the Honda. On the inside of row 8 from Holland, car number 28, Arie Luyendyk. And starting alongside him, 3-time PPG champion Bobby Rahal in the number 4 Honda Lola.
Scott Goodyear will start in 17th position. Alongside him will be Scott Sharp, car number 71. Mario Andretti starts back in 19th position after a disappointing qualifying run, and Raul Boisel, one of those involved in the early before the green flag came out shunt. Alessandro Zempedri will start in 21st position. He also was involved in that incident. Willie T. Ribbs was also involved. He'll start outside row number 11. In the 12th row will be Hiro Matsushita, car number 22, and Robbie Buell in number 19. In the 13th row, Davy Jones in car number 14, the car that is owned by A.J. Foyt. Dominic Dobson will start in 17th position. He was one of those involved in the crash, and we do not believe that he will be able to restart. And so the final starter will be car number 76, the local hometown favorite, the Gold Coast, Australia driver, Gary Brabham. 4 cars and drivers failed to qualify for this event: Marco Greco, Buddy Lazier, Andrea Montermini, and David Coudrave.
Dave Coudrave looking for a good full season again this year. Unfortunately, getting off to a bad start, having come all the way to Australia. And there you see in the distance, or going out of the picture, Gary Brabham, the hometown favorite.
The first of what will be probably 2 warm-up laps before the green flag and racing. The first time they came down for a start, Nigel Mansell had too much of an advantage for the kart IndyCar officials, and so the yellow flag remained out. There was no green, and behind that situation we had the incident. This is the in-car camera from Bobby Rahal, who will be driving the new Honda engine in competition here this afternoon.
You see from the film that covers the camera there, there was a little bit of water, but that's not from rain, that is from spray being thrown up from the cars in front. Watch also how Michael Andretti and Nigel Mansell on this warm-up lap tend to go toward where the water is, if there's any out on the track, to try and keep those wet weather tires wet and cooler, because they're going to get up to temperature amazingly quickly, and the way they're cut, the grooves, causes more friction and makes them slower on the circuit. They want to keep them wet and cool, and they're going to have to change them almost right away. As you can see from that picture, the blue clear skies we now have here. So it looks like we will hopefully get a full dry race in all in one go, but they're going to have to make pit stops almost immediately with these wet weather tires. So wholesale changes to be taking place early.
In fact, I'm very surprised that this isn't declared a dry race, because I can see no water hardly at all on the racetrack.
I don't think they dare at this point.
65 laps, 181.6 miles. Nigel Mansell's pole speed, as I indicated, was almost 4 miles an hour faster than the previous track record, upping it to 106.053. The race record was established by Mansell last year at 97.2, and there is a 6.2 second separation between the fastest qualifier Mansell and the slowest, Gary Brabham.
But more importantly, as we have mentioned earlier, the gap between Nigel Mansell and second place qualifier, almost a full second. Mansell really seems to have the field covered this weekend. He's been quickest in all the sessions apart from the morning warm-up. He was quickest in the qualifying, quickest in the 2 practice sessions and the 2 qualifying. They expect to see good things, as Nigel's obviously got the bit between his teeth defending his championship and his win here last year.
The rest of the field comes through. There's Mike Groff, Bobby Rahal.
How do you think Bobby Rahal feels about having Mike Groff out-qualify him in the season opener?
Yeah, that is an interesting situation.
That's not team rules there. He was interviewed, in fact, Bobby Rahal, and was asked, do you in fact have a 1 and a 2 driver, number 1, number 2? And Rahal says, well, of course, I'm obviously number 1 because I'm chosen to be number 1, but if it gets to the point where Mike's that good, then we'll take away the ruling of 1 and 2. But I do employ Michael Grant, he said. So it might be up to Mike to make a wise decision there.
Well, all the crews have their slick tires on the pit wall so as to indicate that there could be early pit stops to change to them.
Now this, we have not heard the latest weather report, although earlier they were saying could be scattered showers for 4 hours. It'd be interesting to see if anyone has got good contact with the weather service and that they've heard that it's going to rain again shortly, even though the sun is out now. Maybe they'll just stay out there on those wets for as long as they possibly can in case it should rain again. Those wet weather tires in these conditions, as dry as it is now and as hot as it is, are really going to be totally redundant after about 2-3 laps.
There's Teo Bobby in the yellow Pennzoil car going through the chicane. Here comes Scott Goodyear in the bright red Budweiser car. There's Mario Andretti, Boycel, Zampedri. And here is Nigel Mansell, the pole sitter, getting the field formed up. The pace car remains out there with the lights on, so we will not have a go, at least this lap.
I think as far as strategy is concerned, as far as changing those tires, what they will do is, I would imagine, wait. See, there you can see some clouds off to the east, and they may well be blowing in. But I think what you'll see is they'll wait for a couple, 2, 3, or 4 laps to see if maybe there's an early caution again, because there'll still be crowded field, and they'll try and come in under a yellow flag situation, which of course will be a lot better than supping under the green flag.
Showers can pop up very quickly here, especially this time of year. This is the final day of summer in the southern hemisphere, although in the northern hemisphere, of course, it's the last full day of winter. But this weather here this time of year is very, very sporadic, and so we could have showers at one moment and bright sunshine at the next, and that's basically what we have seen here in the last couple of hours. The lights on top of the pace car are out, indicating that the next time they come by the starter stand, they will get the green flag, hopefully, if the field is aligned properly, and we will get underway.
Michael pulls alongside Nigel Mansell. We speculated about their conversation earlier. We'll see what happens as they come round and hopefully get that green flag from Jim Swintal, who's up above the starter stand. Emerson Fittipaldi needs to get closer or hook up more with Adrian Fernandez. As the field groups up once again.
Well, now Michael has pulled well ahead of Mansell, and we have this cat and mouse game, it seems, still going on. Michael is way out ahead of Mansell.
Mansell obviously deliberately is not.
I think Nigel is just holding back, and Michael is.
Well, this right here, we should see Nigel close up that gap now. We'll get around the last corner.
A slow start as Nigel has a field going very slowly down the front straightaway. The cars are bunched up behind him. As we indicated, the pole sitter has the opportunity to get slightly ahead at the drop of the green flag, and the green is out, and we are finally underway. And Mansell does jump to the start as Michael Andretti falls in behind him, and the rest of the field comes through the first chicane. Let's see if there are any incidents here.
Looks like Scott Goodyear may have got hooked up just a little bit as he had the inside line on that apex, but a crowd of cars coming down on him. Fernandez already being held out. Oh, yes, we do. And guess what? We have the same cars as before. We have Raul Boesel. We also have Davy Jones in the Copenhagen AJ Foy car. They're going to have another yellow, and they are going to get this race started.
There's Matsushita, who has been involved in that incident. And the Paul Tracy car is against the tire barrier.
Now, why is Fernandez behind Paul Tracy? Oh, Paul Fernandez, too, was involved in that incident with Paul Tracy, and that's why you don't see him in this picture here. He's dropped back, and that has allowed Emerson Fittipaldi and his teammate Alonso Jr. to go to the front, but Michael's got that lead, too. And Guzman is now running in 5th with Johansson right behind him. A great start for Stefan Johansson.
Well, I am still just amazed at everything that has gone on here this afternoon. It is unbelievable.
Robbie Gordon, Jack Villeneuve, Jimmy Vasser coming by there.
There is Michael.
That start, looking back on the green flag start, it looked like Nigel, it's his right to bring the field to the green flag when he wants to. They now come round for the first time to see that yellow caution flag. As we mentioned, Davy Jones was involved in that. Hiro Matsushita was involved in that, and I also believe that Ari Lyondike was involved.
And I thought maybe it was going to be a situation.
Oh, here they come to the pits too. Just look at that.
And they're coming in to change tires, obviously.
Now they had a local yellow. It's not a full course yellow flag, as far as I know.
I think maybe it is. I think I see the yellow flag waving from the starter stand. In any case, here comes the field in for a pit stop, and they're changing to the slick tires. They have had enough of the wet tires just in the first lap.
And looks like Michael's going to get out first as everybody came in. Michael is out first, and here comes Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti behind him coming in to make his stop. So these two will keep the lead. And who is that coming out? Oh, it looks like Fittipaldi was able to get out ahead of Nigel Mansell.
Now here's a situation I was afraid of, that the track was blocked by that incident. There's a 17 car of Dobson who was involved in the first incident and is involved again. Boycelle's car is there on the right of your screen. Let's take a look and see what happened, as once again it appears as if Zampedri went to the inside, hit Boycelle, who in turn hit Mario Andretti, who continued, however he was involved, and then behind a car up on another one, that is Dobson, who was up on Matsushita.
Robbie Buell was also involved in that, but Davy Jones, who we thought was involved, looked like he managed to get through cleanly and will be able to continue. Raul Boycelle's got to be wondering what's happening with Zampedri, as he got involved with him twice now in two green flags. Oh, and it looks like Paul Tracy's unable to get out of there and has not been assisted by the officials. There you see Davy Jones, who has been campaigning IMSA the last couple of years trying to win the championship. And there's the end of Hiro Matsushita's wing. Davy Jones looking for a push start. Paul Tracy's also going, where I need help, push me, get me out of here.
The Tracy incident was apart from this one here. That the Tracy incident happened further down the track, and Paul is getting no assistance, and he can only sit there helplessly as the field goes by him and the car remains stopped.
Because this will put him a lap down. He won't be able to take advantage of the yellow flag situation. He'll have to change his tires under green. But why, you see the marshals there holding out the yellow flag and the group, but why none of them has gone to help? All he needs is a little nudge out the back and a quick push, and he'll be restarted and be fine. May even be able to fire it up on himself, but he needs to get out from underneath those tires. As now you see Michael Andretti working hard to get temperature in the slick tires, which they've changed to. Robbie Gordon, after all that, has managed to come up to 4th place with the help of the pit stop.
And there is Mario Andretti's car, so it appears to be in good shape. He was very close to having some damage done to that car in the shunt back there in the chicane.
Now you see him saying, now push me forward, let me get a bump start. And as you can see, he never made it around that first lap. He's still on the wet weather tires. He's going to get back to the pit. You have to push a little bit harder than that to...
One of the early race favorites, Paul Tracy, involved in a first lap crash here at Surfers Paradise. Looks like the corner marshals and the track workers are pushing that car.
Well, they're trying to push him to the inside.
There it fires.
They're trying to push him to the inside because the field's going to come round and he would be in the racing line. What Paul Tracy was trying to say, well, if you just push me quickly, I'll better get this car started and get going. Don't worry about being in the racing line. The field's the other side of the track. And there was a bit of a misinterpretation there between him and the workers, as now he makes his way around. But like I say, luckily he will still make the yellow caution flag period, but this has really set him back after a 21st place finish here last year. Disastrous start to the new season for him and also for Raul Boycelle.
And he makes his way to the pit area as quickly as possible.
He's not messing about either. He is mad. The young Canadian will be absolutely furious that he couldn't get assisted earlier, pulled out from that tire wall, and then all he wanted was it doesn't take much of a push, just 15, 20 yards will get these things going, dropping the clutch. They just want to give him a strong enough push or a quick enough push.
This isn't the only problem that Paul has had this weekend. He had engine problems in his primary car in the first practice session on Friday, went to the backup car, and it too had an engine misfire. They replaced virtually everything, including the engine, and finally got the problem corrected, whereby he could qualify in 6th position. Here he comes into the pit area quickly to get the tires changed and back out there.
All right, here you'll see the great work of the Penske crew as they refuel him. Look, you can see him nodding his head, and he's talking over the radio to team owner Roger Penske, saying, I just don't know what happened out there, because the incident didn't do any damage to the car or anything. Now he lights up those rear tires, gets back out on the track, and is trying to get back out there and catch up with the rest of the field.
We're under a full course caution. It came out on the very first lap when about 5 cars were involved in an incident, just as it occurred earlier in the day. Some of the same cars were involved in both incidents. And the field comes through now after having changed from the rain tires to the slicks. There's Al Unser Jr. and Buchelman, Teo Fabi there. Also Adrian Fernandez. The leader of the race is Michael Andretti, and he was able to pass Nigel Mansell before the completion of the first lap, while the attention was turned to the 5-car incident. So Michael Andretti will have the lead when we go back to racing, when the green flag comes out here in just a few more minutes.
These laps, of course, under yellow, these will count now that we finally did have a green flag. These will count as part of the 65 laps. Having made that early pit stop, they're going to go longer now than they would have done without having to make a pit stop for refueling and changing tires once again.
For the most part, the track is completely dry. There are spots that are wet, but for the most part, everything is dry now. Mansell is in 3rd position behind Michael and Emerson Fittipaldi.
Running in 4th behind Emerson Fittipaldi is Robbie Gordon in the number 9 car. Behind him, Al Unser Jr. in the number 31, then Mauricio Gugelmin in 88, then Jacques Villeneuve and Teo Fabi, and right behind Teo Fabi is Jimmy Vasser in the Conseco entry.
I believe behind him would be Adrian Fernandez as the field goes through the chicane quickly. There's a good look at Jacques Villeneuve driving car number 12, the Players Limited Forsyth Green racing entry. This is a Renard chassis with a Ford Cosworth XB engine.
Villeneuve, as we mentioned earlier, ran in the Toyota Atlantic Series and has really impressed a lot of people with his off-season testing and times here or in the States during his qualifying and off-season testing, and once again in his qualifying here at Australia.
And we understand that the IndyCar officials are black flagging Villeneuve because apparently they see some fluid coming from that machine, and so they'll bring him in to check it out.
Corner workers and spotters all over the track will watch cars, and they'll will report if they see something leaking or something happening. They'll report it, and then the rest of the crew workers and corner workers are asked to watch for it, and if they get confirmation of it, they'll call it in, and back and between Wally Dallenbach and Kurt Russell, they'll make a decision to bring a driver in to have a car looked at.
In-car camera carried by Scott Goodyear as he scuffs up the tires and keeps the heat in them so that when the green flag comes out, they'll be up to racing temperature.
I don't know if they're going to move Raul Boessel's car or not, but if they are, we're going to be under caution for a few more laps yet as we look there overhead at the chicane and the field coming through. Behind Fernandez, I believe, is Arie Luyendyk and then Mario Andretti, which considering Mario was involved in that incident would be pretty good, but of course he did well on the pit stop too. That also helped getting a good pit stop. And Newman Haas team, one of the top crews, they practice those pit stops. There's pit stop awards throughout the season. and the best picker at the end of the year. Get quite a good financial package.
I'm sure that Mario Andretti was thinking, boy, what a way to start my final race in Surfer's Paradise. He was so close to being eliminated in that incident, but drove away apparently unscathed. Here's Bobby Rahal. Ooh, how about that?
And Bobby is not going to have anything nice to say about that. Now, that looks like it was part of that first incident, but we didn't see him involved.
Well, we did not see him, involved in the incident at all. We cannot see any damage to the car, although we assume that he has abandoned it because it is damaged in the front end. And here is Raul Boisel's car. There is the Villeneuve car, and this is a result of the black flag. They did bring the car in, and now as he pulls out, he stalls the engine, and they're going to have to refire it.
All right, we shouldn't take too long. And
well, the Bobby Rahal Honda effort is over very early. And again, we don't have any firm word on what happened, but his car is on the hook and headed back for the garage area.
He got off to a disastrous start here last year at the beginning of the race, but through attrition and other means, he managed to make his way up to finish 6th. But it meant a bad start at the beginning of the season, and that is not the way Bobby Rahal wanted to debut his new Honda, because also, if you look in that picture, right at the back of the pack, just ahead of Paul Tracy, is the second Honda of Mike Groff, who started in front of Bobby Rahal, and he is way at the back of the pack to the Honda, having some trouble already, which is not good for this team.
Rahal will have to sit on the sidelines and now watch his teammate and employee Mike Groff carry the Honda colors for the rest of the race. And we ride alongside Nigel Mansell, who is lined up in 3rd position behind Emerson Fittipaldi and the leader of the race, Michael Andretti, as we are just not too far away from the resumption of this race, although the pace car still has its lights on. And now, as you can see, in some parts of the track, the sun might become a problem because it is getting low in the sky due to all the delays that we have had here today.
It's 4:30 right now, and of course, for the folks back in the States that are changing with the days getting longer with the springtime, in the southern hemisphere, of course, the day is going to get shorter as they go into the winter time. And we talked about it earlier, kind of jokingly originally, but I mean, the daylight could affect the outcome of this race. Now, I know the 12 hours of Sebring was on earlier. Is this a repeat?
It seems like it. It seems like we've been racing at least 5 or 6 already, and are only a few laps into this 65-lap event. There's Paul Tracy lined up at the back of the field after he stopped on course after apparently contacting one of the tire barriers and had to be restarted. Then he had to come in for a change of tires. There's Villeneuve, who has also come back out on course after having been black flagged.
And maybe we'll see the lights go out on the pace car this time by, which means we'll have one more lap until we get the green flag situation. The pace car being very busy today. I believe Johnny Rutherford is driving that car.
And he's probably completed more miles than any of the racers out there.
Unofficial rundown for you of the cars right now. Out front, as you can see, Michael Andretti in the Reynard. Second is Nigel Mansell, defending PPG champion. Currently in 3rd, but in line is Emerson Fittipaldi. In 4th, number 9, which is Bobby Gordon. In 5th, 31 of Alonso Jr., then 88, Mauricio Guzman. And then it is car number 12, which is Jacques Villeneuve, but he got black flagged and is now at the back of the pack. So Teo Fabi takes over that position. Right behind him, the number 18 of Jimmy Vasser. Behind him in the number 7, Adrian Fernandez out of Mexico. Started on the 2nd row, but obviously got together with Paul Tracy and has dropped back those few positions. Behind him, car number 28, Arie Luyendyk, who has jumped up the field quite a long way, but that was because he was helped out by that incident which happened in front of him. Behind him, Mario Andretti, then Robbie Buell, then Willie T. Ribbs, and then we have Alessandro Zampredi. Following Zampredi, it is the number 16 of Stefan Johansson, Scott Goodyear, Davy Jones, and then way at the back, Mike Groff, and also now Paul Tracy and Jacques Villeneuve, and out of the race confirmed Dominic Dobson, Raoul Boesel and Bobby Rahal. Rahal and Boesel will be very unhappy because they are definite title contenders, and the point system pays quite well in the IndyCar series, all the way down to 12th place. And even if you pick up just a couple of points, it makes a big difference on a 16-race schedule.
Still no indication that we're going to go green because the lights on top of the pace car are still blinking, keeping these drivers at reduced speed. And for what we had hoped to be a very competitive race, Guy, we have seen no racing whatsoever. We have one lap of green in 2 hours and 35 minutes. At least that's when the race was supposed to have started. But still, we have seen very little racing because of rain and accidents.
This is, in fact, our second caution of the day.
There's a wet spot there as the cars go into the corner, but that certainly is not a serious situation.
The track looking very dry at the moment. These drivers now have certainly got to be anxious for a green flag and do some racing laps. As I should say, we should be going green. Still picking up pace right now. Let's see if we can actually get full lap in here without going yellow or without a downpour of rain.
Here we go. Green flag is out, and Michael Andretti with a big jump over Emerson Fittipaldi as they head for the chicane once again. Now Emo begins to close in just a little bit. Nigel Mansell runs his car up on the rumble strips. And Robbie Gordon back there in fourth position is keeping up with the three ahead of him.
Yeah, the lead four, then there's a bit of a gap back to Alonso Jr. And behind Alonso Jr. comes Mauricio Gugelmin. We'll be able to see now how good that Reynard is around this street circuit. Of course, untested at this point on an oval on a super speedway, but Reynard's certainly looking good, although Emerson Fittipaldi's able to stay very close, as are Robbie Gordon and Nigel Mansell. Early stages in the first or second green flag laps we've had.
And the sun glistens brightly now off of these cars as nice weather has fallen upon us. Look at Robbie Gordon. He made the move, a nice move, outbreaking Nigel Mansell. And Mansell, as he did last year, falls back to fourth position here in the early going from his pole sitting position.
And Robbie Gordon made that move on what was called Mansell Corner, because that's where Nigel made all his moves last year. So a wonderful move by Robbie Gordon, although he did lock up that left front. Which doesn't look like his flat spot of the tire at all, but he did lock it up for quite a little bit there. But obviously he felt he got the room, and he put a nice maneuver in. As we see a replay once again, Robbie Gordon on the inside, Nigel Mansell starts to turn in. He's on the racing line, but Gordon is already down the inside of him. Little puff of smoke from the tire, and a nice maneuver by Robbie Gordon in the Walker Motorsports number 9 Valvoline sponsored car. 25-year-old is certainly an aggressive driver.
He certainly is, but a very fine driver. And again, he told us earlier that he thought that if anybody can keep up with the front runners, he could. He said he could keep up with Nigel Mansell. Well, he has proven that he can run faster than Nigel Mansell, at least at this moment. His job right now is to catch Emerson Fittipaldi in second, and the leader of the race, Michael Andretti.
And without speculating too much, those three do seem to have pulled away just a little bit from Nigel Mansell. Whether Nigel's playing just a waiting game, let the race come back to him, wait till the first round of pit stops is done before he even makes any kind of move for the front, we'll have to wait and see. Or whether it may be a mechanical or his tire problem. And look at that cloud over there, over the ocean, on the east side of the ocean, on the east side of the track. That is not looking very promising, Bob.
Looks like that more rain might be imminent. Let's hope it blows over. The wind is still blowing quite strong here, and maybe it'll take it away from the race course. The last thing we need is more rain. Here is Robbie Gordon still running in third position, and Nigel Mansell back to fourth. Michael Andretti taking that car up over the rumble strips, and so is Robbie Gordon. In fact, all of them are cutting that corner as much as they can.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, the rumor from the paddock, or the word from the paddock, was the only way to run this course is to run right over those chicanes and run right over the apexes, just go straight over them. It's a much quicker line than going around them. And as you see there, the 4 lead cars, all of them just went right over those rumble strips. Unfortunately, if you get it wrong, though, you either clip something or you tend to get launched badly, and it certainly throws the car off balance.
7 of 65 laps completed. It's Michael Andretti, Fittipaldi, Robbie Gordon, Nigel Mansell, and Al Unser Jr. running in 5th position. And Andretti enjoying a 6 or 8 car length advantage now on Emo, although Emerson does close up as the cars move through the chicane. And Robbie Gordon is right there on Nigel Mansell's rear wing.
Obviously, right now, Michael Andretti's car is handling just fine. We'll see how that changes as the race goes on, as the fuel load gets lighter and as the tires get more and more worn. Maybe he has a very good handling car with a full fuel load, but once they start to lose all the weight of 40 gallons of fuel, handling may go away. The track, of course, the condition changes on the track in the last 2 hours have been immense. We've gone from hot, sunny weather, having had a race on the track this morning, to rain and all the rubber being washed away, and then we ran a few laps. Now we're back under running high-speed laps under dry conditions, so that the track conditions are totally different to when they last went out in the morning warm-up, which, when I say this morning, was a long, long time ago now.
It seems like days ago, as a matter of fact. Mansell continuing to run in 4th spot. Here is Michael Andretti, the leader, doing a fine job.
And he's going to be very, even for him now, if the race were to end, he's going to be very happy with the fact that Reynard was able to qualify on the front row, and he was able to go out, overtake Nigel Mansell, and lead a few laps and prove that the Reynard is obviously going to be a good car, straight out of the box.
You saw his statistics there regarding his 1993 performance in Formula One. It was a disappointment to him, and it was a disappointment for everyone, despite the fact that he did have a couple of points-paying events. But it just didn't. Oh, he went through that corner just a little hard. I thought he was going to clip the right side of the car with the wall.
Yeah, the problem with running up over those is you've got to get it just right, because if it does throw the car off, the track is very narrow and it's going to throw you. We see a yellow flag, and that is for Ari Lyondike, who's come to a stop alongside the wall there. And Ari was running pretty well up there. Getting back to that apex thing, you run over the apex, over the curbing like that, it can throw you right into the wall, and of course the concrete wall is very unforgiving to an Indy car.
The top 4 continue to run together, and now it appears that Nigel is closing in on 3rd place, Robbie Gordon. Gordon had separated himself a little bit from Nigel, but now they run pretty close together. Mansell just...
Now, last year, Nigel dropped back to 4th spot by lap 16. He was back up in the lead. We're on lap 10 right now. It doesn't look like Nigel's going to be back up the lead by lap 16, but like we mentioned, he could be playing a waiting game and taking his time. Certainly, we know he's a consummate racing driver, but he does tend to prefer to be out front if he can be. Of course, it's a long season. He's looking for points too. An early stage to be speculating to as to what Nigel Mansell is doing. He may just have a slight technical problem.
Michael Andretti in the Reynard Ford Cosworth, leading the way with 10 laps completed here at Surfers Paradise in Australia, the opener of the 94 IndyCar season.
There you see once again a sample of how Michael runs over those curbings. Looking, really bouncing around there. But they're all doing the same thing, and they've been doing it all weekend long, and it's been the way to go around this track the quickest. It's just a matter if it gets slightly wrong. There you see Lyondike getting a tow from the safety team, so you can pretty much count Ari out of this one in the Indy Regency Racing Olivier Griard part owner team. And we look forward to them coming on strong in Phoenix.
And certainly the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is one of the tracks that Ari Lyondike likes best. He has had some great performances there, including a win. And you know he's always competitive at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Right now it is Michael Andretti continuing to set the pace. He is throwing that car through the chicanes, up and over the curbs, and getting as much out of it as he possibly can, as he has done all weekend here. Just throwing that car everywhere. But he's leading.
Certainly sounds sweet too, doesn't it? The car, it sounds like it's running beautifully as it echoes through the concrete off the side of the track and also all the downtown buildings. It really sounds wonderful. There you see that caution flag once again. That's for Ari Lyondike, who's just up here on the inside up against the wall.
We can add Lyondike's name to those that are officially out of the race. Besides Lyondike, it's Raoul Boisel and Bobby Rahal that have dropped out of competition, leaving Mike Croft as the sole Honda participant in this event. And now this battle for third position gets a little tighter as Nigel is within a couple of car lengths of Robbie Gordon.
Emerson Fittipaldi has seemed able to give himself a bit of a cushion over these two as this battle continues between the two Lola and Ford engine cars. It's Ford, Ilmore, Ford, Ford. So a good battle up front, of course, and the manufacturer's battle as far as the engines are concerned and the chassis are concerned. Certainly a good variety of cars and teams here. Oh, Nigel getting very close, right up underneath the wing of Gordon. We may see him make a move as they go in. Oh, well, not here, Nigel, because there's a safety car there, which he's obviously seen. Right. Maybe wait a couple of laps till that safety car is off the track and clear. It won't be in that area by the time they come back around, but that looks like a good spot for Nigel to make that move. Maybe he's just seeing that time round if he is going to be able to.
Well, he sure pulled right up on the rear wing of Gordon, and I thought that he was set up to make the pass, but had to back off when he saw the local yellow being displayed. Now he once again tries to position himself right up in the back end of that Robbie Gordon car. They go through one of the corners, and it's now down to a car length again.
As we have another car off too. That's a great view on board as we were riding there with Nigel Mansell, watching him chase down Robbie Gordon.
And Gugelman has now moved into fifth position, overtaking Al Unser Jr., who was shown in that position just a few laps ago, but now Mauricio Gugelman shown in fifth spot.
Two Brazilians running in second and fifth. Good for them, and of course great for the international television, as approximately 10 million viewers get to enjoy this show live in Brazil. And we all know, of course, the Brazilians are fanatics when it comes to sports and heroes, including the fact that they now have an Ayrton Senna comic in Brazil. A cartoon strip, in fact.
Nigel Mansell winning the IndyCar Championship in '93 after a Formula One World Championship in 1992.
He's unofficially leading the championship this year because he now has 1 point for qualifying on the pole. There's also going to be a point awarded for the person who leads the most laps here today, and then 20 points to the winners, 16 for second, 14 for third, 12, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And look how close he is again, just trying his best to find the opportunity to get around as these cars come up on the slower car of Robbie Buell. And
about to go a lap down already. Don't turn in now, Robbie.
Gordon will get by, and Mansell also comes by Buell.
Robbie Buell, the Indy Lights champion from a couple of years ago, and also the Barber Saab Pro Series champion from the year before that. So he's certainly proved himself as a driver in really an under-financed team right now, and first time here in Australia too. So he's learning the circuit, learning the track, and give him another year or so, I think he could certainly be a force to be threatened with on the IndyCar circuit.
Gordon continuing to hold his third position, although Nigel Mansell is right there at his rear wing. Gordon changing teams this year. He was with A.J. Foyt last year. This year running for Derek Walker and also securing the Valvoline sponsorship. Now we ride alongside Nigel Mansell as he dogs Robbie Gordon.
Yeah, that was interesting at the end of last year. Robbie Gordon was saying, well, I think I might be moving. Got some good drives lined up. And A.J. Foyt kept coming out with press releases saying that he had signed Robbie Gordon to a 3-year contract and Robbie Gordon was his.
Look out, here is a pass. Nigel comes right alongside him and tries to make the move. Boy, they're running wheel to wheel down through here. Let's see who breaks first. Mansell succeeds in making the pass.
Wow. Pass, and there you can see how equal these cars are as they ran down that straightaway. I mean, barely a fraction of little extra speed carried out of the corner by Nigel Mansell, which allowed him to make the move. But you can see how the power and the horsepower and the pop-off valves really help to keep these cars fairly equal.
So now Mansell has moved back to third position. He started from the pole, was passed by Michael Andretti in the first lap, and then a couple of laps after that had fallen all the way back to fourth, but now he has repassed Robbie Gordon and is in third position as the Kmart Caltex, which is the Texaco affiliate in Australia, also shown as a sponsorship on that car.
I see that Nigel has personally picked up a few extra sponsors, including Danker, which sponsors Wayne Taylor in the IMSA series. It's a manufacturer of copy and fax machines and office products, and they are now a personal sponsor, I believe, of Nigel Mansell.
A tremendously popular driver throughout the world, especially in the United States and Great Britain. Nigel Mansell, who won the hearts of many race fans when he came over here last year and accomplished what he did in the early part of the season, and then continued to rack up wins throughout the season until he won at Nazareth, which gave him the 1993 IndyCar World Series Championship.
And he commands huge audiences and attracts amazing crowds to anywhere he goes. When he was doing the Kmart appearances last year, they were saying how happy they were with him because of the fact that when he was there, hundreds of people were showing out for autograph sessions. When he's back in England during the off-season at various shows and dinners, etc., lots and lots of people are showing out for El Leone, Nigel Mansell.
And certainly Emerson Fittipaldi is also a very popular driver, almost a national hero over in his, or down in his home country of South America in Brazil,
where of course he has many other interests apart from the motor racing,
including orange groves, which of course he chose to drink at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway after winning the 500 rather than the traditional bottle of milk, which created a little bit of a stir.
The incorrect, considered to be anyway for a little moment, then it all, after a while, it all blew away. But you're right, and also owns many franchises of the Hugo Boss clothing chain down in Brazil, and they also sponsor him through other ways right here in the IndyCar series. Danny Sullivan owns a couple of those franchises up in Canada.
Watching second and third position here, Emerson Fittipaldi in the Marlboro #2 and Nigel Mansell in the Kmart #1. The leader of the race is Michael Andretti, and he has continued to stretch out his advantage over Emerson Fittipaldi in the last few laps. Michael Andretti took the lead before the end of the first lap and has held it all the way so far, as now Mansell begins to put a serious challenge on Emo, and he's going to get him under braking again. A nice move by Nigel Mansell, and he goes to second.
Yeah, Mansell, I think, in those few laps before that, the first 10 laps, have backed off a little bit, said, okay, I'll let the race come to me, or worry about pit stops and stuff. But every time he's gone around, he's getting radio reports at how much Michael Andretti is pulling away. And Nigel's really got the bit between his teeth now, as he is able to get by Robbie Gordon, blow him away, and then come up alongside Emerson Fittipaldi and make the move at will as they go around that turn, under braking into the left-hander. And he has now firmly got his sights set on Michael Andretti, who he doesn't want to get off to a huge lead that can't be caught up later on. So Nigel Mansell, once again, thrilling the crowds. We mentioned it last year. He came back after 16 laps to retain the lead. This year looks like he's on a mission to do the same thing, making a move down the inside, very nice and smooth. Emo sees the move, recognizes it's being made, and stays out wide, doesn't turn in on him. Of course, Emo still wants to be there at the end when the checkered flag drops.
Didn't even smoke the tires when he made that pass. Just made a nice move to the inside, a nice, smooth, clean move. And Mansell goes to second now behind Michael. Fittipaldi third, Gordon fourth, and Mauricio Gugelmin continues to run in fifth position after qualifying for the 6th, 7th spot. Here's Michael, and as you can see, he has quite a lead on Nigel. Now Mansell will try to cut into that advantage.
Quite an empty trap behind him. Of course, it's all going to change in about another 8 to 9 laps as we get the first round of pit stops underway. And that is certainly where a race can be won or lost.
And a car in the fence.
And badly damaged, and obviously a bit of a flame coming out the back. I think that's Robbie Gordon. That is Robbie Gordon in the number 9 Walker Motorsports car, and that is bad news for Robbie, who was running in the 4th spot, having just lost that position earlier to Nigel Mansell. Robbie is going to have to go back to Derek and explain exactly what happened there.
Well, the good news is that Robbie was able to get out of the car under his own power, obviously is uninjured, but Robbie Gordon's day comes to a close after he ran very, very well. Here he is coming off the chicane, just getting sideways and nailing the wall, doing a half spin and nailing the wall on the right side of the car, and then a small flame breaking out of the rear of the machine, but that's nothing serious. Robbie Gordon, however, drops out of competition after contacting the wall.
And that's what we talked about not long ago when we said you get that just slightly wrong when here we have an onboard picture as he clips the apex and again, and it just throws him off. It throws the balance of the car off, and you can see him back off now. You hear him heavy on the brakes as he's got it locked up going backwards, but it just threw the weight of the car off, and it threw him into the wall, threw him slightly sideways, which then when he tried to correct, put him into the wall.
Michael Andretti, Nazareth, Pennsylvania young man, from McLaren back to the IndyCar ranks and leading this race. There he passes Hiro Matsushita, car number 22, the Panasonic machine.
One of the hardest guys in the IndyCar racing to overtake, and also one of the ones you overtake most often, unfortunately, and came to some criticism last year from Matsushita, as he did seem to be awkward to get by, and he does tend to have to be gotten by a lot of times. There you see once again the official confirmed out of the race, Bobby Rahal in the Honda Alfa Cell.
Oh, and Villeneuve is off course and through the sand trap, but flies over it and keeps going.
Yeah, he should be okay. I don't think any damage occurred to the car. A bit of a shake, but smooth sailing, and it shouldn't have cut the tires or anything, so Villeneuve should be able to continue. Of course, he had that stop earlier for the black flag situation, which dropped into the back of the pack after making a pretty good start. Now Nigel Mansell comes up, and you can see him try and get by Matsushita. Here's Villeneuve, and it looks like he got together a little bit with Mark Smith as they went into that corner. Mark Smith running under slightly new colors, but in the Craftsman sponsored car again this year.
Mansell lapping some of the back markers. There he passes Hiro Matsushita, and now look, there is at least Michael is within Nigel's sight, so he has cut into that lead quite considerably in the last 3-4 laps.
A treasure pod at the end of the rainbow as far as Nigel can see now. And a few laps ago we couldn't even see Nigel Mansell, so he's really cutting into that lead pretty quickly and would like to get much closer before that first round of stops comes up.
Lap traffic could play a part in that. Sometimes you encounter a slower car at a point where you have to brake and get completely slowed down before you can pass him, and other times you can pass him cleanly, and so that may have contributed. But in any case, the separation between first and second is much less now as Nigel closes in, or begins to close in, on Michael Andretti.
See another yellow flag. Seems like they've got yellow flags out all over the place today. They're the stationary yellow flag, which means it's not a full course caution, but a local caution in that part of the track. But it seems like there's a lot of them, as now we're seeing Michael Andretti make his first pit stop. And this seems like it's fairly early to me after only 18 laps. Oh no, it's a full course caution. Full course caution.
Indeed, and so Mansell also takes advantage of the full course caution to come in for a pit stop. First and second are in. Work being done on Michael Andretti. It's completed already. Here comes Emerson Fittipaldi in behind. Michael is rolling once again, and that advantage that he had built up is going to all go away now because the pace car is on the race course.
And that's something that other forms of racing and racers dispute, and they say, you know, the yellow flag, all that advantage that Michael Andretti worked so hard to get has now been thrown out of the window. But it works for the other drivers too. Maybe not at this race, but the next race it could be Nigel Mansell that's leading by 10 seconds and then gets a yellow flag, and then his advantage is lost. So it works out fairly evenly. Unless, of course, you're consistently leading every single race by 30 seconds, and you always have to go back and join the rest of the field. But the way Michael was able to pull away at the beginning, I think we'll see him do that again. But Nigel did a wonderful job of catching up again after 18 laps, dropping back to 4th spot.
Not surprisingly, the reason for the full course caution is to get Robbie Gordon's car off the racetrack. He crashed a little bit earlier, and his car was in a dangerous position, and so they brought out the caution. We're at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia, in the Australian FAI Grand Prix IndyCar race here on ESPN International.
And Mauricio Gulgerman was able to get out in third spot ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi and Teo Fabi. So great run. Now we have another incident. And that
Mark
is
Smith.
Yeah. And who did he just run into?
He has had contact with somebody back in the chicane, and it has torn the right suspension off of that car.
Mark Smith, who is running in the number 15 Craftsman Tool Walker
There's
Racing.
the other car. It's Sam Pedri, who has had his problems here in his IndyCar debut. He was involved in a couple of incidents on the first lap of a couple of starts that we had, and now he has had contact with Mark Smith, and it looks like that this may eliminate him because he began to unbuckle and get out of the car.
I was going to say they stopped earlier with the yellow flag, and there's going to maybe cause some fuel consumption problems later on in the race. Now with that incident, it's going to be a longer yellow. They're going to run on quite a few yellow flag laps right now, so it really shouldn't affect the fuel situation later on in the race.
Live.
3000 series, and now he's racing here.
Welcome back to live coverage of the IndyCar race from Surfers Paradise, round one of the PPG IndyCar World Series, and we've had a lot of action already in today's event. It started around about 2 hours late after delays for rain, then it dried out, then it rained again. Finally we got the race underway, only for a big shunt on the first lap to further delay proceedings. At last the race got underway properly, and Michael Andretti shot into an early lead. So Andretti still leading this race as we've now completed 21 laps out of the scheduled 65. Mansell has been working his way up back into second place, however. He dropped down to fourth place in the opening stages, but he's fought his way past Robbie Gordon and Emerson Fittipaldi and is now right behind Michael Andretti as we are at the moment on a yellow flag period. Several cars off around the track. A rather strange accident between Mark Smith and Alessandro Zampedri in just a moment ago, which we will actually have a look at in just a moment. Mark Smith coming into one of the chicanes. Here we can see it. He locks up. Now if you watch Zampedri behind as well, Smith hits the wall, but Zampedri is also locked up and locks up and crashes straight into the side of Mark Smith's car, which has already gone off. So both of them seemingly suffering from brain fade on the same occasion as they came into the chicane there, and in fact we were pretty much under yellow flags by then anyway around the rest of the circuit. So an unfortunate incident taking out both Mark Smith and Alessandro Zampedri, both of the youngsters in the series this year. Zampedri having his first ever IndyCar race, and he's been in the walls already a couple of times today, being involved in two other accidents when we tried to get the race underway originally. So it's all been happening, but we've got a great race up front between Michael Andretti and Nigel Mansell, so it bodes well for the rest of the race. We'll go back to our American commentary team now.
Sam Pedri's car on the back of the wrecker and being removed from the race course.
They'll take that back to the paddock and put it in the back of the transporter. Get it on a big jet back to the United States for the next round. Here, let's take a look at the top 10 of the Australian FAI Grand Prix.
Just about a third of the way through the event, with Michael Andretti leading over Nigel Mansell, Emerson Fittipaldi, Teo Fabi, and Willie T. Ribbs now shown in 5th position. 6th is Mike Roth and Jimmy Vasser. Mario Andretti is 8th, Stefan Johansson 9th, and Adrian Fernandez is running in 10th position.
And Robbie Buell that you see running in that group is in fact a lap down. He's sitting between Vasser and Mario Andretti, so move him down one, Robbie Buell.
It'll be interesting here to see what happens when the green flag comes out, see if Michael can get the jump and pull away from Mansell as he did at the beginning of the race. I just have a feeling that it's not going to be that way. I think Nigel's going to be able to stay up with him.
Yeah, I certainly don't think Nigel's going to let him go, that's for sure. He's going to probably stay right with him, and there'll be some very aggressive driving between these two for this race and for the remainder of the season. It really does promise to be a great season this year, Bob.
Yes, it does. So many top teams, so many top drivers are in the series this year, and I think it could go down to a very, very competitive season. We add Robbie Gordon, Mark Smith, and I think we can also add the name of Alessandro Zampedri to the name of that list. There he is, along with Gary Brabham. Brabham has also dropped out of the race, so the hometown favorite has called it quits. And the attrition here quite high in the first 20 or so laps of this event, as several cars have either dropped out or crashed out of the event.
Well, we had 27 cars take to the field, and of those 27, 8 are now out. Gary Brabham was the one that we saw parked earlier but were unable to identify. Not quite sure the reason for him being out of this race, but unfortunate for him at his home racetrack. If you can call it a home racetrack, because it's a temporary circuit, 16 turns, and by tomorrow morning this was supposed to be open again to regular traffic. They're going to be having a tough time trying to do that today because it's
not sure the race is going to be over by then.
Good point. There you see the pace car taking Michael Andretti around there, and we'll get past that one parked car which needs to be towed away yet. I don't know.
That's Mark Smith.
Right, which is, I'm not quite sure why I guess they've had so many incidents all in one go. They need another.
Yeah, it would appear so. And certainly there's no tow truck there to take that car off the track at the moment. So apparently everybody's busy and they can't get around there yet. But anyway, the other members of the IndyCar safety crew are there, sweeping the track off and making sure that it's okay when the car itself is removed.
I'm surprised Alonso Jr. so far, he started well, started in a good position. We really haven't seen anything from him, and he went to the back of the pack. And is that rain I'm seeing?
It would certainly appear so, although, well, I don't know. It's not raining here in our area, but it could be raining someplace else on course.
Track, with a 2.5 mile track. Sometimes actually closer to 3 miles, but that does tend to happen. You get rain on some sections, and not on others.
Sun shining on most areas of the racetrack, but that would not account for the possibility of a scattered shower on another section.
With these more and more laps under yellow being run, that will help Michael Andretti, because he will of course pick up a point for leading the most laps. At this point he's led almost from the very beginning, so he's led about 22. If he can lead another 10 or so, it's going to be tough for somebody to lead more laps than him unless they lead from that point on right to the end, which is unlikely because of the pit stops that are still left to run, and the fact that the competition is as tough as it is this year. Nice paint job on the PPG official pace car.
Willie T. Ribbs, who's in 5th position and doing a fine job.
That's Walker Motorsport's last hope. Willie T. with some sponsorship from Service Merchandise, and of course Bill Cosby, the entertainer. And Willie's come up through the ranks of Trans Am and IMSA races. Finally, the last couple of years, able to put a good package together where he's able to run the whole season.
And you're right, the other two Walker Motorsports cars, driven by Gordon and Smith, are out. Both of them crashed within just a couple of laps of each other, and so Willie T. carries Walker's colors for the rest of the day by himself. Yeah, I think maybe there are some rain sections of this track because our camera lens is wet once again, and that can only mean that if there isn't something being thrown up from the racetrack, it is rain, and I think maybe it's a brief shower.
You know what else? The vision is going to get very hard too, because we have all this rain that's being laid down, a lot of rubber laid down, and a lot of oil being laid down, and debris on the track, all going to get thrown up as they race. And of course the sun is really beginning to set at this point, and it's going to make vision very hard as you go from shady sections onto very sunny sections, into the sun, out of the sun. It's going to make a real challenge for these guys. As
you saw the past winners there, John Andretti was the winner of this first Surfers Paradise Australian Grand Prix back in 1991, registering his only victory and giving the Jim Hall team its only victory as Hall returns to the IndyCar ranks after a few years of being away from the series.
I think you can definitely report that now as rain at that station on the track. You see it coming down fairly heavily at that part.
And the track is getting wet at that location, needless to say. It's more than just a light shower. It's coming down pretty good right there. Although, as you can see, the sun is still shining over there in addition to the rain.
Now, these cars were all on the slick tires, and as you saw there...
Yeah, slippery.
Yeah, a little slippery for Paul Tracy as he got back on the power, and also Jacques Villeneuve getting a little sideways as he got back on the power a little too forcefully on the exit of that turn.
We'll go at least one more lap before getting the green flag and a resumption of this race. And now, again, the rain plays into the whole scheme of things here.
Yeah, the yellow flag came out, and they were able to pit under the yellow flag situation and change tires. They had a yellow on the very first lap, which enabled them to come in and change the yellow. Then again, this incident, which enabled them to come and change and refuel under the yellow flag conditions. And now it looks like we may have a continued yellow flag situation. It'll be interesting to see how bad that rain is on that part of the track and what the crew chiefs are getting as a report as far as rain, and will somebody come in and change back onto the wet already while they can under this yellow caution period.
It's pretty much a localized rain, though, and most sections of the track are dry, and so I don't think that they'll probably see a wholesale rush to the pits to change the rain tires, but we shall see. And the other thing is that shower could move on over other sections of the track, so just something else to think about here in the last half spin.
Yeah, you can see it coming down pretty heavily, so I think you'll probably see they're getting the one lap to go. And let's see who does dart into the pit area and make that decision. One lap to go. Be green next time round. I think Willie T. Ribbs pulled off, didn't he? Yeah, Willie T. Ribbs pulled off behind the pit wall now. What Willie is up to, we don't know. Whether he's changing tires or whether he just happened to make a stop that he didn't make earlier.
And the spectators begin to head for drier ground as the rain now begins to move on to the main straightaway here. And Paul Tracy comes in for a pit stop.
Paul Tracy will be frustrated, and he is changing on to the wet weather tires. So there is someone who is making that decision and maybe gambling a little bit, but it could turn out to be the smart move. They make a little aerodynamic adjustment to the front end to set the car up a little better for the wet conditions. So Paul, he stalled it.
And he stalled it.
Yeah, that cost him before. Now they've got to put it back to his pit.
He's a lap down. He lost a lap while he was stopped on the racetrack in the first lap, and has been trying to get his lap back since then, but of course has not been able to. This pit stop now is concluded as the engine fires once again, and Paul Tracy goes back out onto the racetrack.
Now he is certainly got to have his fingers crossed as far as that rain. He wants that rain to stay, and he wants no one else to make the pit stop. And that's something he and his crew chief, John Bolslog, have decided on, along with Roger Penske, as they get ready to go racing. And this time round, we should get the green flag, as I mentioned. There you go, on board, or not on board, with a view of Mario Andretti, the Arrivederci Mario Tour. As we saw the Richard Petty Tour in NASCAR, his farewell tour, now Mario doing the same thing. Although he says it's not really a farewell tour either.
Right. It's his final year of competition, though, in the PPG IndyCar World Series. Mario Andretti. Getting set for a restart. Pace car pulling off of the racetrack as the field now begins to come through the final chicane and gain a little bit of momentum toward the green flag. Michael Andretti wiping the visor. It's obviously very wet out there, and it's going to be difficult to see with the spray coming off the tires.
There you see a rip-off there, being floating around in the air. In fact, it looked like it ended up in the radiator vent of that one car that was coming into the picture, which is not good.
Now Nigel Mansell pulling up nearly beside Michael Andretti, so as if to indicate, here I am, and please be aware that
here I come.
Yeah, that I could very well. Oh, and Mansell spins it.
And that was going to allow Emma and Faber to get by, and now he's not going to be able to spin it back around till that field goes by, so that's going to put Nigel Mansell right to the back of the pack. And a superb, huge lead for Michael Andretti.
And a very uncharacteristic move by Nigel Mansell. You just do not see that.
Well, you know what you're going to see now, though, is one kick of the charge from the back as he tries to make his way back up into that lead pack. And now Michael Andretti will see as he gets sideways, he's going to clip the wall too, and he hasn't damaged the car, but he has put the tires out in the middle of the track, and he's able to keep going, and he's going to lose a lot of time.
And Emmo is having some trouble keeping control. It is very slick out there, and everybody would be wise just to hold their position, go as slowly as they can.
Oh, we got an incident in the back there too. I think someone made contact with those tires, and that is Guzman and Paul Tracy back there. Now, it stopped raining too.
But still, it's slick out there, so is Michael going to come in for a stop, and are all these guys going to come in for a stop? Positions are being changed back here. Under the wet conditions, Emmo has second position
from Mario.
But Mario now has moved up into third, and he may get second here as he tries to pass Emmo, and does. So,
and here's the water part of the track there. So it suddenly gets slippery again. And that is, I can't quite pick out the number on.
It's Groff.
There's Mike Groff in the number 10. The Motorola-sponsored Honda entry into the Rahal Hogan team. The only hope for Honda left in this event, as Bobby Rahal went out in that very first lap. I don't think he's done any damage to the car. Should be able to spin that back around and get back out onto the track. There you see Paul Tracy at the back of the pack, who was on. Paul Tracy went on to the wet weather tires.
And here is Nigel as he tries to get some help from the corner workers to get him turned around and going again.
Yeah, he must have stalled that engine. Otherwise, once the field went by, he would have just dropped the clutch and done a quick 180 and got back underway. But obviously, well, they're having trouble turning it around too.
Yeah, they are.
He wants to go, saying, take me further back.
Nigel's very frustrated. Here's what happened. Coming off the final corner onto the straightaway to take the green flag, Mansell just on the power too hard and sliding the car sideways.
You see him turn into it and try and correct it. He locked him up a little bit, then he lets go of the brakes to try and get it back around.
And that's Emerson Fittipaldi, who's trying to decide which way he should go to avoid Nigel, and he chooses the right way. There's no contact between the two.
Now that safety team is really, they should pull Nigel back all the way, let him turn around and get back on the way. They're leaving a little bit of room for the field to come through, and here we see once again Michael Andretti, as he gets sideways, makes contact with the safety tires, which means he doesn't do any damage to his car, which is quite fortunate for him, but it leaves the tires in the middle of the track, which later on Mike Groff and another one of the drivers collected and caused a little bit of damage to their car.
Well, through all of this, Michael maintains the lead, does not come in to change tires. Emmo has gotten second place back from Mario Andretti, so it's Fittipaldi second now and Mario in third spot.
And we also have a full course caution as the pace car is back out. Picking up our leaders, Michael Andretti. And as you say, Emerson Fittipaldi and Mario in third spot.
Here's from the in-car camera.
Shut it down.
You can see the frustration.
And then he has to sit and wait. Now he must...
Keeping the revs up on the car, trying to keep the engine going.
That's not a position like to be in either. Sitting there looking at oncoming traffic in the slippery part of the track with everybody on slick.
And then he lets down the clutch and it dies.
Yeah, as he tries to do the 180, he loses the motor. Unable to restart it, and he's looking for a push, and it just took him a long time. And I think Nigel may have lost a lap by now to the field.
So is Michael going to come in for a change of tires, you think?
I don't think he is, and I don't think the other leaders have. And Paul Tracy would be a good example. He went onto the wet weather tires for that restart, and is really unable to improve himself much. He's picked up on 2, 3, 4 spots maybe, It seems like it's just wet in a couple of areas on the track, and as long as they're careful in those areas, the rest of the track is dry, and it's worth keeping the slick tyres on for that portion of the track. Now you see Nigel right at the back along with Teo Fabi.
Well, let's check the standings. And another car. Here's Adrian Fernandez, who is going the wrong way on the track. Actually stopped at this point. It's Mario, Fittipaldi, Mario, Fabi, and Vassar, the top 5.
Sport Live.
The pace car remains on the racetrack. No indication yet that we'll be going green. We see a car pitting on the right side of your screen. In fact, several coming in for pit stops.
Now Nigel Mansell went back out on the slicks there. Here you see Willie T. Ribbs changing back from the wet weather tyres to the slicks. So Paul Tracy's gamble may not have paid off as he went out on the slicks, on the wet weather tyres. We know that Michael Andretti has stayed out on the slicks.
There's Nigel.
He's on the slicks and back underway at high speed, and got a lot of ground to make up. Well, I'm sure you'll see quite a show from Nigel Mansell at this point.
He'll be trying to make up ground. But a very uncharacteristic mistake, if you will, by Mansell in the wet weather. Not even halfway finished with this race. We're 27 laps in out of 65. Fernandez has gotten going again. As you can see, he was one of those who spun during the rain shower that we had, but he's okay. There is Paul Tracy behind Mansell. And Willie T. Ribbs, who just came out of the pits.
Early stages of this race, as you say, we're not even halfway through it, just lap 27 of a 65 lap event, so many changes could take place between now, which is approximately 5:30, and the next hour, which would be 6:30, including the sun setting.
So there's Stefan Johansson in one of the Bettenhausen cars, carrying a little bit of debris there on the front wing of the car, but that should make no particular problem for him.
Last year we saw, I believe it was Mario Andretti carry a fan's hat in the same position around the track for about 15 to 20 laps.
Here we go, Guy. The lights on top of the pace car are out. So back to racing we will go here in just a couple of moments with Michael Andretti leading this race, and he has led all the way so far. There's Johansson.
New paint job on that car this year, a little tougher to pick it out, but it is the same sponsors as last year. It is Amex, but they've added one of their other groups in there.
It's an aluminum producing company, Alumex, that is carried on the side and the rear wing of that car. Well, Michael is getting set to step on the gas once again and resume competition. Emerson Fittipaldi is right behind him, and his dad is running in third spot, Mario. Here they come off the chicane and on the main straightaway.
You see how early Michael started to get the power down? Look, he's going to get past the pace car before they get to the start-finish line. Michael making a real go for it on the restart. He's done well so far and was able to put a gap between himself and Nigel earlier on the restart, and now he's going to try it again with Emerson and Mario, of course, right over the back door of Emerson Fittipaldi.
Mario having a good race. He won at Phoenix last year, breaking a long winless streak.
I wonder if Mario was to win this race. People have won races on almost every continent at that point, as well as winning almost every single form of motorsports that there are, including Formula One. He and the man in front of him, two of only three people in the world to win both the Formula One World Championship and the IndyCar Championship. Of course, the third guy we're referring to is Nigel Mansell. Nigel, of course, the only person who has done it in back-to-back seasons. To field off the Johansson car.
No, it's still on the front wing. Oh, we also see that Mike Roth is running, and he was another one of those spinners during our shower, but he's running again.
Heavy brake locking up there by Michael Andretti. Don't want to wear those tires out too quickly. The Reynard certainly looks very nice as far as preparation. There you have a look at the top 5 after 29 of the 65 laps.
Mario is looking very racy, guy. He's staying right with Emo, and in fact, we may see a passing attempt here soon.
Mario, I think, just trying to find out where he is quicker on the track and where that move can be made. May have to fill it out for a couple more laps before he actually does anything. Mario, of course, even though he talks about retiring. Ooh, and there's Nigel, who...
Well, that's the second spin by Mansell. That came as he was trying to move his way through the traffic after having been put to the rear of the field because of a previous spin.
Yeah, he did that under braking, didn't lose control, but locked it up, went straight on, amazingly, didn't make contact with anybody else, then tried to do the 180 again, but then stalled the engine again, and now is back out underway, and it's got a lot of work cut out in front of him. But early on, we're only 29 laps into the 65-lap event.
Yeah, but he's certainly not having the race that he had hoped to have. And from the onboard camera, let's see, it simply happened under braking. He got to the inside of that car and hit the brakes. Just was not on the right line.
Got to the inside of Willie T. Ribbs. He did a beautiful job of spinning it around, but unfortunately, he must be having maybe a transmission problem or possibly some kind of clutch problem. Maybe he hasn't got first gear because there's twice now he's stalled it trying to get going, and he was able to turn it around no problem. So maybe Nigel is having some kind of problem with his transmission, which is talked about earlier over the weekend.
Here's Michael Andretti continuing to lead now with a bit of an advantage on Emerson Fittipaldi, and the battle for second rages on, and Mario had a look there to the inside of Emo, but could not make the pass. The road narrowed up as they headed for the chicane, and so Andretti falls back into third position, but I haven't seen Mario look this racy in a long time. He is himself doing well, and the car is performing well for him.
Yeah, he's certainly threatening here as far as Emo is concerned. As I was trying to say earlier with the Arrivederci Mario Tour, he has said, you know, I'm not quitting either just because I'm slower, and he certainly isn't slow. He's very competitive, always qualifies well, seems to have a lot of bad luck in the races, but is certainly running quick laps with everybody else and is able to stay with everybody else. And here you see why Mario is such a good driver and staying right on Emerson Fittipaldi's tail. Of course, these two, probably a couple of the older drivers in the series.
This is Mario's 31st year of competition in IndyCar racing. His first full season was back in his first season of racing was in 1964. And he has 52 IndyCar victories to his credit and 66 pole positions. Of course, the last victory coming almost a year ago at Phoenix International Raceway. And he's won over $10.8 million in his 31 years of driving Indy cars.
Of course, you mentioned that $10.8 million. Now some of these drivers are making that and winning that in a year. But Mario, racing back in the 60s and stuff, they weren't making any money back then. And if he'd won those 52 races he'd won, if he'd won 30 of those races that he won back in the 60s and early 70s, if he'd won those in the 80s and 90s, we'd have a lot more than $10 million in winnings, that's for sure.
Mario Andretti won his first IndyCar race in 1965 at Indianapolis Raceway Park on a road course that is still at IRP but not used for IndyCar racing. That was back in 65. He and Emo get by the slower car of Hiro Matsushita there, and Mario continues to run just behind Emerson Fittipaldi, who is in second spot. And the onboard camera with Michael Andretti, who's the leader of the race.
Still, once again, just running right over the curbing. and the apex of those turns and letting the car bounce around nicely. The wet section of the track seems to have dried out. Beautiful on board view with Michael Andretti. The wet section of the track seems to have dried out, which has paid off for Michael Andretti and certainly cost Paul Tracy again, who gambled and went out on the slick tires. A real tough day on decision making today.
Here's a replay.
Oh, Scott Goodyear getting it, losing it under braking, going to that hard left-hander. That's the same spot that Nigel Mansell lost it a few moments ago. He was trying to make a maneuver on Jacques Villeneuve, I believe, and that's cost Scott quite a few places. Kept the engine running, and he's going to get back out under the way. See how quickly it happens though. Once it gets locked up and gets wrong, you can just see how quickly the car turns around.
Scott Goodyear this year driving for Kenny Bernstein, the veteran drag racer who is himself in competition this weekend in Gainesville, Florida in the United States. Kenny Bernstein, of course, also owns a NASCAR Winston Cup team and is one of the most versatile persons in motorsports in terms of his ability to drive a dragster and his involvement in other forms of motorsports.
First man to crack the 300-mile-an-hour mark, and now, of course, they're already
quite common.
Yeah, quite common, and they're already up that mark quite considerably.
And by the way, that first 300-mile-an-hour run was made on the track they are competing on this week, the Gainesville, Florida dragway.
Good example there on that corner, the right-hander. It didn't look like Emerson Fittipaldi or Mario Andretti were running over the curbing quite as much as Michael were. They seem to be going around it more. Maybe just that one corner, or whether it was just that one time, I'm not really sure.
Now there's quite a gap between second and third as Emo has separated himself a little bit from Mario as Michael Andretti looks to put another victory in his resume and his first as he returns to IndyCar racing from a year of Formula One. He has 27 victories, and his last one came at Laguna Seca in the final race.
The spinner's in a nasty spot too around the blind corner. Willie T. Ribbs and Adrian Fernandez. And there comes our leader, Michael Andretti, around the problem, I believe. Look at the yellow flags out, of course, quickly on that situation. Willie T. Ribbs, who was as high as fourth at one point, then made a pit stop. And then saw Nigel Mansell. See, now Willie gets it sideways. Fernandez reacts and gets it sideways too. A little bit of synchronized swimming there. And they see Willie giving it an applause.
And you know what? I bet this brings out a full course caution. Fernandez is rolling, but I don't think that Willie T's car is going to be able to go. It appears to be high centered. There's Willie T, who was out of the car and obviously okay out of the race. Disappointed, but okay, as Fernandez has his car rolling again, but I'm not sure that Willie's is going to be able to move, and it's in a very precarious spot, and so we might look for the possibility of a full course caution.
There you see Michael coming up behind Fernandez. Obviously no damage to Fernandez's car. Oh, he nips down the inside, and that would seem like a last-minute desperation move, but he's put a bit of a gap between himself and Emerson Fittipaldi. He's achieved exactly what he wanted to do, but it seemed like quite a daring move, and of course that's what Michael Andretti is famous for.
Jimmy Vasser has moved up into fourth position, and Stefan Johansson is in fifth.
So once again, we have Reynard leading and a Reynard in fifth place position. Johansson in a Penske chassis with the Ilmore power. I think you'll find from that incident from before, Willie T. Ribbs, that he was applauding the fact that Fernandez managed to see the problem, correct it and save it, and not get in too heavily with Willie T. Ribbs. And a very unfortunate day for Walker Motorsports, as now all three of his entries are out of this race. Fernandez is able to continue racing in that Gallus Reynard that he is running.
And obviously no full course caution. That's good because we can stay racing. But now the interesting thing to me is that it would appear as if the leader interval is shrinking as Emerson Fittipaldi is closing in just a little bit.
And we are not going to get a full course caution where you have the yellow flag waving and a white flag with it, which means there's a vehicle, emergency vehicle out on the track. That emergency vehicle, just then as they went by, as the leaders went by, it seemed like it was parked in an incredibly nasty spot. But they know what they're doing and they've got it all under control. Michael Andretti, as you say, it looks like Emma has managed to hold off Mario a little bit, and we are now on lap 35 of 65. If this keeps up, we're going to need a fuel stop and a tyre change coming up fairly shortly. I'll tell you, some of the drivers that are running with the tinted visors too, because the cameras make it look a lot lighter than it really is by allowing a lot more light into the picture. I think some of the guys with the colored visors may have to switch to the plain ones, because the sun is very low in the sky right now.
And Andretti continues to drive his car over the rumble strips and through the chicanes, but he is maintaining the lead and getting everything out of that car that he can possibly get.
Car certainly sounds wonderful, looks wonderful. There you see the two cameras mounted on the roll bar too, either side. Looks like Michael's got big ears for a moment, but there's our cameras. There you see Emerson Fittipaldi followed by Mario Andretti. And this right here, those three cars are pretty much the story for the season. It's going to be the Reynard, particularly the Michael Andretti Reynard. Fernandez goes off once again and manages to avoid getting together with Jimmy Vasser, who's our fifth place car. Willie T. Ribbs, who was out of the car, is now back in the car with helmet on.
He may get a restart.
Just to finish up that story quickly, this really is the battle of the season. The Reynard with Michael Andretti in it, followed by the Penske, the big team of Penske, and the Newman Haas team. Those are the three teams that are going to be the big threat this year.
Michael Andretti leading here in Surfers Paradise. He's led all the way so far, keeping the advantage over Emerson Fittipaldi and Mario Andretti at the moment. And a crash here. Jacques Villeneuve involved.
And Johansson.
And Villeneuve goes down the escape road, gets the car stopped before hitting those tire barriers down there, but it's going to be an exit for Villeneuve.
And he was having a good run. You can see how mad he is, by the way. He throws the steering wheel there. He was having a fairly good run. And he got together with Johansson. I think he's caused some damage, or some damage has been done to the Johansson car. And Johansson was running up in fourth spot, I believe, when that took place. So very disappointing day for the Bettenhausen team with Stefan Johansson and his new sponsor. Here is a replay. Yep, look at that. Johansson just kind of squeezed him out. He went out, made contact. I can't tell from there if it did damage Stefan Johansson's car, the Swedish driver getting together with the Canadian, and disappointing start to the season for Villeneuve, who was running so well in that car. There you see...
That's Fernandez,
yeah,
who is missing a right front tire. He's down to the rim trying to make it back to the pit area. Fernandez started this race in fourth position and had moved to the top 5 at one point. This is going to set him back considerably.
Well, if that tire, or what's left of that right rear tire, if it gets any more damage to it, it's going to start damaging the bodywork, whipping up and smacking that wing and some of the side pod area. But he looks like he's made it back
to the pits, yeah.
So he should be okay. And he looks like he'll be able to get back out. He probably ran over some debris from the Willie T incident that he was involved in earlier. Probably ran over some debris, cut that tire, which caused a spin, and that's what set him back. He's got to put a new tire on and get back out there. Not quite sure what position he's running in right now, but it's certainly been a long day for Fernandez.
It continues to be the same up front. Michael Andretti leading Emerson Fittipaldi, who has a mirror full of Mario Andretti in third position.
Michael Andretti has now also picked up that point for leading the most laps in this, the first event of the 1994 season.
Of this event now, and if it's as exciting as the first half has been, we still have a lot of things to show you and tell you about, because we have had numerous incidents of contact out on the racetrack in one form or another. We've had lots of spins caused by a wet racetrack. But we have only had one leader, and that being Michael Andretti. For those of you who are just joining us, Nigel Mansell was the pole sitter, dropped back to as much as fourth. He had moved back up to second, but then as he came around for a restart a few laps ago with a wet racetrack, lost control of the car and spun, went to the back of the field, and then had another spin. So Nigel Mansell is down a lap and will undoubtedly not win his second consecutive race here at Surfers Paradise. Watching some action in the back of the pack now, or in the middle of the pack. That's Teo Fabi and Mike Groff running together, and Mauricio Gugelmin, Scott Goodyear,
and Nigel Mansell at the back of that thing. The spin cost Nigel Mansell time, but also the fact that the engine stalled both times and he was unable to get going as quickly as he would have liked. And then, of course, that push period where he couldn't get the car turned around cost him an awful lot of time. I'm sure he's making up for it right now. Not exactly sure what position he's lying as Mike Groff locks him up, following Teo Fabi, Gugelmin, Scott Goodyear, and Nigel Mansell.
Bobby Rahal, Mike Groff's Honda teammate, was one of the first out of the race on the very first lap. And here's Willie T. Ribbs, who was involved in an incident with Adrian Fernandez a few laps ago and got out of the car, got back in it, fired the car, and drove it back to the pit area, and that's where he is right now.
Getting some attention from the Walker Motorsports team as they try and keep that car running and maybe pick up a couple of points as Nigel goes down the inside of Scott Goodyear, the number 40 King Motorsports entry, and is able to make that move.
He's in 10th position.
And working hard to get points for the season, because only just over halfway through this race, and Nigel could still win it. I mean, things we've seen today, anything could happen.
Nothing is impossible, at least with Nigel and here, because we have seen just about everything you can imagine in this race so far.
Now he's right up underneath the wing of the Brazilian Mauricio Gugelmin in the number 88, which is basically a team car to Michael Andretti, who is leading.
Fernandez smoked the tires there again. I thought he was going to crash, but didn't. Scared me.
And there's Mike Groff locking him up again. And Nigel comes down the inside of Mauricio Gugelmin to pick up that position too. So a nice overtaking maneuver there. He also locked them up a little bit. Nothing too serious. Really, unless there's flames coming out the back of the tires and about 30 feet of smoke, then it's not too serious as far as Nigel's concerned.
Mansell will give it everything he's got, regardless of where he's running and regardless of whether he's in contention or just battling for another spot.
Looks like he's going to be able to out-drag Mike Groff down on this long run and get him too under a braking maneuver.
But
Groff gets together with Fabi. Now Nigel runs, just gently taps the back of Fabi. Shouldn't have done any damage, but boy, oh boy, now we see Groff pull off.
He's got some damage there on the front of the car.
Wow, I mean, what a race today. We've seen pushing and nudging and getting together in wet and dry conditions. Just incredible.
And besides that, we started off with a 2-hour delay because of rain. Here it is once again. Now that's Groff moving alongside Fabi, making contact with him, getting the car sideways, and Nigel has to slam on the brakes. I don't know whether he had contact with the back of Fabi's car or not. I don't believe he did, but boy, it was close.
Groff did a great job too of getting it all locked up and smoke coming out of everywhere, but then right just before the corner, before it was too late to make the turn, he let off the brakes, turned in and got around the turn successfully and is able to continue, although it's obviously costing a lot of time and a lot of tire wear.
Mauricio Gugelmin there at the back of this trio. Started 7th and ran up in the top 5 for a while, but he too has dropped back in recent laps.
Still having a good run, as we were saying. That is the team car to Michael Andretti, the Ganassi owned, and there you see the top 5 after 41 laps of 65.
Still Vassar in 4th position and Stefan Johansson in 5th, and that is the replay of the incident between Nigel and Fabi, which also involved Mike Groff.
Johansson is in 5th, and I believe this right here is a run for 7th, 8th, and 9th. and somewhere in there is a 6th place car. Teo Fabi staying with the same team, Jim Hall, the VDS team. They got the same sponsor. They're about one of 2 teams that didn't make any changes. Short shifting there. Obviously knew there wasn't much he could do about the situation now. See if he's got the exit speed coming out onto the long straightaway to carry him up alongside Fabi and then use the slipstream to pull out underneath braking, but no, not close enough this time.
Here's the out of race list, and it continues to grow. Ray Hall and Boycell were the first out. Lyondike followed. Robbie Gordon crashed, so did Mark Smith. Zampedri crashed. And Jacques Villeneuve was the most recent to drop out of competition. He too in a crash. And here is Nigel going to the inside of Teo Fabi and passing him. Fabi is in his backup car. Remember, he crashed here yesterday afternoon and destroyed his primary car. They've been doing an extensive amount of testing in preseason at Big Springs, Texas, and they have been doing so at record speed. But it did not carry over here at Surfers Paradise, as Fabi has had some problems during the weekend. Started this race in 11th position.
And look at the distance Nigel's been able to put between himself and Fabi already. And how many times have we seen that? The picture of Nigel, this picture right here, going down the inside on a left-hander, locking up that left front. How many times in this race, this year and last year, have we seen that? It's just phenomenal how he's able to just continually play that same maneuver over and over again, and it works every single time for him. Still a lot of work to be done as far as getting up with the leaders, but as far as the championship is concerned, this is all working in Nigel's favor because he's getting more and more points every time he moves up in position. And it comes down to points, and it comes down generally over the last 3 or 4 years to a very close points finish at the end of the season.
And there is the separation between first and second, and now second and third. As you saw, Michael Andretti with nearly a full straightaway, front straightaway lead over this car. Emerson Fittipaldi, the Marlboro Penske number 2, and the number 6 Kmart Texaco Haviland, driven by Mario Andretti. 7 cars on the lead lap. So Nigel is a lap down, and he's going to have a very difficult time gaining that lap back.
Yeah, I don't think he'll gain a lap back, but he can gain some positions, and of course you still get points even if you finish a lap down. You still get the same amount of the points you would have done if you weren't a lap down. In his case now of running the last 20 or so laps till the end to pick up as many points as he can. This camera with the light that it's letting in, it really doesn't let you know, but it is getting dark there. There's serious running into some serious shadows on some parts of the track. And visibility is getting to a minimum at this point with the oil and everything else on the visor. They've used all their rip-offs because of the rain earlier. And visibility is really getting to be a tough problem, I should imagine, as they circulate this 2.79 mile circuit.
Emo and Mario second and third.
Talk about great names in racing. I mean, in a race you got Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti running for second and third place.
Emo's most recent victory came last year in Mid-Ohio. He visited victory lane 3 times last year. Of course, the big one, the Indianapolis 500, he was the winner. And he also won at Portland and at Mid-Ohio. He wound up earning more money than anyone else on the PBG IndyCar World Series last year, mainly because of his paycheck that he received from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which of course pays well over $1 million to the winner.
Yeah, certainly a good money season for Emerson Fittipaldi. Was a very competitive and good run in the championship, but unfortunately had a string of about 2 or 3 events that he just didn't finish well, and that really kind of hurt him in the championship, actually did kind of cost him the championship. And even though it wasn't settled till Nazareth, it could really have been decided by Mid-Ohio, but Nigel Mansell had a disappointing run there and was unable to clinch the championship, as Michael Andretti making his return to the IndyCar Series in fine form. He started on the outside of row 1. He's been quick in practice, quick in testing, quick in qualifying, and now quick in the race. Nigel Mansell makes his pit stop as 5th place driver. Stephanie Johansson also makes his pit stop, changing for tires and taking on a whole load of fuel. And they should get that done in about 15 seconds as 6 men go over the wall, and then they'll have a last dash now to the finish with about 20 odd laps remaining.
And this should be the final pit stop of the day. They should be able to go the rest of the way on the fuel and the tires. And still, Nigel is lighting them up as he goes into the chicanes. Now Michael Andretti comes on to pit road. The leader of the race gives up his top spot to come in for what should be his final pit stop of the afternoon, bringing the car to a stop here, and the pit crew going to work.
Immediately following the speed limit, which is posted in pit lane. There you see him giving his visor a good clean, because like I said, they're out of rip-offs. They use all those up in that rain part, and time is taking its toll on the rip-offs, and now you just have to wipe them with the glove. Seemed like a pretty quick stop. He had almost a lap over Nigel Mansell when he made the pit stop. Obviously lost all that, and he too locks him up as he comes out. Just saying earlier, what a great return for him to the IndyCar series this has been, and looking to win race number 1 as he puts a nice little block on Mike Groff. Groff's got warm tires, and Michael's coming out on cold tires, and is definitely trying to get by. Again, Michael will defend his position. Now, following the blocking that we saw last year, there was a ruling that you may, in fact, block to a point, which was you could defend your position.
Right. Whatever that means.
Once or possibly twice on a lap, but after that it became blocking,
right,
and therefore you would get a either move over the flag or a penalty flag, depending on how serious that blocking had been. There you see Michael rather, taking the rules probably to their limit with his 2 little defensive moves, and any more he would have said no.
So the lead now belongs to Emerson Fittipaldi, and Mario Andretti has moved to 2nd position. However, Emo should be, in fact he is right now, coming in for his final pit stop of the day. So Emerson Fittipaldi gives up 2nd spot to come in.
As crew chief Rick Rinneman gets ready to greet him, and the rest of the Penske crew, 6 men over the wall. See how quickly they get this done. There you see him wiping his visor. He's going to need a rag or something to really get that clean. He's got something on there that's bugging him. It probably is a bug, in fact.
Waiting for the fuel to go in. The tank is full. Good stop, and Emerson Fittipaldi is back in action. So now Mario picks up the lead of the race.
Just to get back to that Michael Andretti situation with Mike Groff earlier, I don't think Michael probably knew it, but Mike Groff, of course, is a lap down. He was not trying to get a position. He was trying to get his lap back. Michael probably didn't realize that and just thought, well, I don't want to lose a position. Michael Groff, of course, would like to get back on the lead lap, which is why he was fighting so hard for that. And there you see Emo. So all 3 of these guys have blocked him up. There you see how they run.
So Emo got out ahead of Michael. So Fittipaldi is, or will be, when everyone makes his pit stop, the lead of the race, or will he? Here's Michael making the move, and he got him.
Yeah, because Emo, of course, coming out on the cold tires once again. Michael's already got 1 lap into his, and some heat in his. Now is how quickly can he pull away, or how much can Emo stay with him, because he's got those colder tires and he needs to really push it to stay with him. Doesn't want to lose contact right away. It's got Goodyear too all over the back of Emerson Fittipaldi.
So Michael Andretti has had his final pit stop. Father Mario, I believe, is still the leader of the race because he has not made his pit stop. But when he does and all shakes out, everybody has made their stops, it will be Michael back in the lead. And he appears to be pulling away from Emo. The Reynard chassis appears to have passed at least its initial test here this weekend. The race isn't over yet, but it has performed very, very well.
I certainly think Adrian Reynard will be very happy. Michael Andretti's obviously very happy. And I think you're right, it has taken on and proven that it can do it. It's come out of the box, basically. This is the first race of the season. A lot of people were expecting it to come here, maybe run well, but then drop out, have a problem. But it's performed brilliantly so far for Michael Andretti. And also the other drivers, Jimmy Vasser is running well in his, Teo Fabi in his. Jacques Villeneuve was doing okay till he got knocked out of the race. So it really has proven its point that it's going to be a competitor right from the word go throughout the rest of the season. Tide's gone out.
Yeah, it has, and the skies have cleared up again. But you're right, it is getting a little bit dark here. As you can see, most portions of the course are in deep shadows now, as it is just a little past 6 o'clock here.
Yeah, this race course was due to get underway at 2 o'clock. We had a 2-hour delay, a little over 2-hour delay in fact. Started the race after 4 and getting ready to finish it about 6:15 or so right here, 6:20 with about 18 laps remaining. Just over a minute a lap.
Scott Goodyear is staying right with Emerson Fittipaldi in the Budweiser car. Goodyear, who is driving for Kenny Bernstein, as we said, has not been particularly happy with the way his car has performed all weekend. He was complaining after the first and second days of qualifications that the car was just getting no grip whatsoever. It's performing fairly well here, at least in these last laps of this race. There is Mario Andretti, and once again that shows you how far Andretti is back of Immo in third place.
Of course, Mario's now made his pit stop and charging him down for that position. One thing, or one person, two people in fact, we've really not seen any of today. Al Unser Jr., who qualified well and immediately went back to the back of the pack, and also Paul Tracy, who after making having that problem early on when he went into the tire wall, has been running. The car wasn't damaged, he's been running ever since, but we've really not seen him at all day. Mike Groff right behind Mario Andretti.
And he has portion of his front wing missing, does Mike Groff.
Makes handling somewhat tricky for him around this tight street circuit, although downforce here is not as important on most street circuits. There you see the top 5.
Gugelmin has moved into 5th position. A few laps ago it was Johansson that was in 5th, but now Gugelmin is. Mario, Jimmy Vasser, and Mauricio Gugelmin, the top 5. As we near the closing laps of this 65-lap event here at Surfers Paradise, a race that has given us just about everything you can possibly imagine.
Jimmy Vasser running into Reynard now this year, looking to equal his best performance of last year, which was a 3rd place finish at Phoenix at the Oval, where of course we had major changes towards the end of the race as we lost Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi, but a good run, and he certainly proved he can run well, run quickly. And Jimmy Vasser has picked up some great sponsorship too with the Conseco deal this year. That originally was going to go to Adrian Fernandez, but something happened in the off-season, and Conseco backing Jimmy Vasser in the STP Hey-Ho Racing entry, which is the Reynard with the Ford engine. 16 laps to go. As we see Scott Goodyear coming up behind Emerson Fittipaldi, but that is not for a position. I think Scott at this point maybe running a few test laps, seeing if he can stay with Emo, and of course gather any information they can, take it back to the shop with them. And
he's been staying right there with him. Maybe Emo has pulled ahead a little bit, but Scott for the most part is keeping right up with him. He's at least staying ahead of Mario Andretti, who's just behind him.
Michael Andretti with 16 laps to go, about 24 minutes or so left in this event. Quite, like we say, quite an impressive debut and quite an impressive return to the series for him, and I'm sure it will certainly boost his ego and burst his morale as he makes his return to the series, because he's a little bit in the dumps after that Formula One try last year, and to a point, you start believing the press, you start believing what they do write about you, and now, of course, he's come back out and said, well, no, this is what I really am, and here I am going to be leading the championship.
Yeah, I think it does quiet a lot of the critics who were so critical of Michael after his poor performance in Formula One. But he comes over here and qualifies 4 miles an hour slower than Nigel Mansell. And then at the beginning of the race takes the lead from Nigel and never relinquishes it, while Nigel encounters a couple of problems. So it is indeed going to be an impressive return to IndyCar racing for Michael Andretti, even if he should not win the race, and it appears as if he will do so if things keep going the way they have all race long. But even if he doesn't, it's a very impressive return for Mr. Andretti.
It would have been interesting to see Michael stay in Formula One, of course, give him some more time to learn the circuit, more time to test, and more time in the car and get used to a Formula One car. And I think, after another half a season in Formula One, he would have really come out and shown everybody exactly what he has got and proven that he was a worthy candidate for that McLaren drive.
Yeah, there's no question that his performance in Formula One did not reflect his ability as a driver in any way, shape, or form.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back to live coverage of the Surfers Paradise IndyCar race. We're getting to the final stages now of this race. Lap 53, and the news is that the race is to be red flagged at the end of lap 55. So we've only got a couple of laps remaining, and it's still Michael Andretti leading in the Reynard, with Emerson Fittipaldi there in the background in second place, and Mario Andretti holding on to third place at the moment. So just a couple of laps to go. The light fading too seriously for them to take it all the way to the end of the scheduled 65 laps, and the organisers deciding to end the race at the end of lap 55. Well, what a superb race this has been, and what an amazing performance from Michael Andretti and the Reynard. If Andretti comes through to win this, it will be an historic win for not only him, but also for the car. Reynard's stated aim was to win the first race. They've done it before in Formula 3 and Formula 3000. Johnny Herbert winning his debut Formula 3000 race in a Reynard, the first race for the team. And now it looks as though Michael Andretti is going to take the first win for the Reynard IndyCar in its debut race. Let's not speak too soon. He's still got another lap to go, another lap and a bit to go before the end of the race. But it's certainly looking very, very promising at the moment for Michael Andretti. We can really see now where the light is beginning to go. The curbs shining away, the day-glow paint on them. The light really is fading badly. Just a couple of laps then for Michael Andretti to take it through to the checkered flag. The Chip Ganassi team, which is looking after this Works Reynard, this would be their first victory if Michael Andretti can get to the checkered flag, the first ever win for the team as well. So it really would be an incredible finish to this first race. Nigel Mansell, well, he was attacking hard. He was in second place behind Michael Andretti in the early stages, but the rain in the mid part of the race affected him as they got on the restart. The green flag waved after a yellow flag period, and Nigel Mansell just booting it a little bit too hard round the corner onto the straight, losing control of his Lola 94, spinning out of the way, and in fact stalling the engine as well. So Mansell's still running, but he's in 7th place and a long way down on race leader Michael Andretti. Andretti himself a little bit lucky to get away with losing the back end of his car as he went through one of the chicanes, hitting one of the piles of tyres. And just look at the lack of light there from our onboard camera with Michael Andretti. You can really see they're going into darkness here now in Australia. It's getting very, very dark indeed as we get into this final stages. So Michael Andretti just onto the final lap now, and just dealing with Teo Fabi in one of the other Reynards just in front of him. It's been a good performance from all of the Reynard cars in today's event, and well, Those of you at the Reynard factory in Bicester, I know you're all watching. If you've managed to stay awake this long after having been up all night, no doubt, to watch this, it's been well worth it to see the performance of the cars. Andretti finding a way past Fabi, Emerson Fittipaldi closing up a little bit there in second place, and the leading Penske driver from Surfers Paradise, very much Emerson Fittipaldi. Paul Tracy went off in the first lap of the race originally, did damage to the car. He did rejoin, but we haven't seen him feature. And as for Al Unser Jr., well, we really haven't seen anything of him all afternoon. So Junior has not featured, but Emerson Fittipaldi has been very much there. There he is in second place. He's very, very close to Michael Andretti as we get into the final stages.
Just to finish that point I was making before, I'm sure some of the drivers radioed in to the crew chiefs and said, hey, you know, we can't see out here. Speak to the officials.
As they come round on this final lap, Michael Andretti looks as though he's going to come through to take the checkered flag. Fittipaldi still chasing hard. Mario Andretti holding on to third place in the Lola. It's going to be 3 chassis in the top 3 places.
And Emerson Fittipaldi.
But the one that counts for Michael Andretti is the Reynard that he is driving. He's slammed it over the curbs all the way through the race. It stood up to that treatment very impressively indeed. Adrian Reynard and Rick Gaughan out there in Australia to watch this debut victory for Michael Andretti. And here he comes to take the checkered flag. The opening win of the 1994 season goes to IndyCar returnee Michael Andretti. Second place to Emerson Fittipaldi, and a fine third place to Mario Andretti. And look at the delight in the Chip Ganassi team. It's their first ever victory, and well, what an achievement. There is Chip Ganassi himself, a former driver who never managed to win an IndyCar race himself, and now finally the team has achieved it. Superb stuff. It's Michael Andretti's win. It's the last race he won at Laguna Seca at the end of 1992. He's returned to IndyCar in winning style, and it's surely the correct answer for all the critics who slammed him after his season in Formula One in the McLaren last year. It's exactly the answer he wanted to give, and well, he couldn't have done it in any better way. Chip Ganassi absolutely overcome with delight at that performance. And it's been an incredibly long day as well to get to this point. So many delays to get the race started. The rain first thing, the decision as to whether to start on slicks or wets, finally getting the race underway only for a big accident to hold proceedings up once again. Then the race getting underway, everybody coming in for slicks in the early part of the race. Michael Andretti leading from the start. Nigel Mansell dropping back to 4th, then fighting his way back up into 2nd place. Then the battle seemed to be set between Andretti and Mansell, but just as it looked as though it was set, the rain came down, and on the restart after the yellow flag, Mansell threw it away. He spun away the Lola and dropped right out of the reckoning. Then Michael Andretti leading the rest of the race. He was worried for a moment after the second round of pit stops when Emerson Fittipaldi took the lead briefly, but another aggressive bit of overtaking from Michael Andretti saw him retake the lead, and it was a lead that he was not to lose right the way through to the end of the race. Superb driving from the American, and everybody in the team absolutely delighted with that performance. Emerson Fittipaldi in 2nd place, and Mario Andretti taking the final podium place in this Arrivederci year for Mario in 1994. Jimmy Vasser a fine 4th place in another Reynard. Stefan Johansson in last year's Penske holding on to take 5th position. So 2 Reynards in the top 4, Penske in 2nd and Lola in 3rd. Gujamin in another Reynard in 6th, Fabi in another Reynard in 7th place. Then the Lola Honda of Mike Groth. Mansell finally ending up in a 9th position, and in 10th place, IndyCar rookie Scott Sharp. So it's been a very eventful first race here at Surfers Paradise, and the IndyCar season is really set up well. Round 1 has been decided, and round 2 from Phoenix can be seen live here on Eurosport on April the 10th. I hope you can join us then. Till then, from Ben Edwards, thanks to Bob Jenkins and Guy Hobbs, goodbye for now.